Hello, and welcome to Sutro Sidetalk, episode 191. I'm your host, Kamran Shushtar, and with me is
James Seelig.
And today we are joined by Ryan from across the Bifrost. What's up, Ryan?
Nothing much, guys. I am excited to be back for my second appearance, Cameron. I can't remember.
For this show, because you were here for Thor, Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we talked about at one point I've talked to you about Bakchi's Lord of the Rings.
That was in our other show, Sutro Side Watch. And then we talked about the glories of Lord of the Rings movie? From Ralph Bakshi. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The nightmare-inducing film?
We talked about Sam and just how everyone gave Sam a little bit of extra special treatment just because Sam couldn't really function like everyone else could.
Cameron's impression of Sam was so spot on that it was like I was watching the film again as we were talking about it.
The animated one or the live action? Which one?
Oh my gosh.
Live action, we have Sam like, oh, Mr. Frodo, you have to go to Mordor. And then in the other one, he's like,
his IQ drops so fast.
I love it because, all right, James, I don't know if you know, in the animated one, when Gandalf leaves them to go on the journey in the beginning, he turns around, looks at Sam, and does like a fake punch lunge, like a, and Sam's like, ah!
I don't remember that.
Walks away.
Like, I remember watching that as a kid, but it's been so long, I don't remember like most of it.
It's required viewing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. But like today, like I'm excited to talk about these two movies because we reviewed Quantumania a while ago on Across the Bifrost, and I haven't gotten to talk about Guardians with people yet.
Really?
2 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to talk to anybody about it. So I've got everything. I'm going to try to recall as much as I possibly can, but I'm excited to do this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's great. And if you guys haven't realized yet, we're going to be talking about the animated Hobbit film and the Return of the King. It's going to be a great time.
Fake out.
Yeah. Oh God. We might do that in Side Watch eventually one day if we actually ever bring back Side Watch. I don't know. What we're doing, Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, followed by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. No news. Like I said, we're probably not doing any news until summer Ganning shit starts and we get overwhelmed and drown in news and it's gonna suck. But that's why we have Ryan here. He is our Thor expert and also a better Marvel expert than we are.
Oh gosh,
so we need so you'll be helping us out here with any good references. So we might not notice it just as regular moviegoers and not like comic readers, even though I read a lot of DC and X-Men, but I don't get into the mainline Avenger type comics just because it's never been my thing. Otherwise, let's jump right into it. We're going to start with Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania, and our first part, which I cracked up in my notes. I put because I'm like, oh, what am I going to title this in my notes? Oh, Marvel McDouble. That works. But for Ant-Man 3, we kind of have a good little agenda going for it, and just because we've gotten, what is this, both the third movie for both of these films, we're pretty established with the main cast of characters that we've been getting over and over and over, and not to mention they appear in like Avengers movies and whatnot, and Captain America, depending, I guess, for like Scott and stuff. But the ones we don't really get are the villains, which I guess one is kind of big because they're putting like 3 phases around him and he seems like he's important. I guess we'll find out, especially after watching Ant-Man 3. It's kind of confusing a little bit, but
yeah, that's gonna be one of my complaints is at this point with the several versions of Kang we've had, I am so confused as to which one we're supposed to like
which we'll
be
get
worried
to,
about.
But first off, I wanted to talk about the more important villain that really grabbed the eyes and hearts of audiences around the world.
I hate
MODOK, aka Darren, everyone's favorite Darren.
I hated everything about this character in this movie. It wasn't even just the CG. It's just like there were literally moments that had me cringing, and I was just like, by the end of the movie, I kind of felt like they could have left this character out of the movie entirely and just had some other hunter if they needed to have a hunter for that one scene. and it would have been the same movie. And all they did is just make a stupid MODOK.
Oh, James, I can assure you there's no other version of him. There's not like a serious, edgy.
Oh, for sure. Like he's always
And
like a joke. He's a floating head in a chair, but like I don't know if it's just that like he doesn't have the weird, stupid hair, or like he doesn't look ugly enough somehow. But it's also just like the shit at the end of the movie where like Cassie's like, "Damn it, Darren, just stop being a dick." He's like, "Well, I don't want to be a dick." And it's just like,
well, no, he's like, that's
are
all
we
I've
really
ever
doing
known.
this right now?
Yeah, but like, all right, Ryan, I gotta ask you.
Yeah, what's up?
In the comics,
Okay.
that's his face. Like, he just has one face. He doesn't have a mask or anything, right? It's just a face.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that weird tiki mask thing.
Not to, yeah, like I do agree with James there. I'm like, okay, we know MODOK's going to be in the movie. We know he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous for ridiculous's sake. He was strange in the beginning when he.
No, that was the other movie. It was strange. This is man. Come on.
I'm recording additional audio for a show that's probably.
Oh, I see.
MODOK is. I don't get with the face mask. I didn't understand that part. Because to my recollection, that's not a thing. That's not a thing previous. That's probably just an aesthetic choice for the movie. And not something I'm familiar with outside of that. I honestly, when I go into these movies, like my opinion is amateur. My Cameron said expertise. I'm like, that is incredibly generous because I just go in and I'm like, okay, am I going to enjoy this movie? My standards have not dropped because I don't care about comic book movies anymore. I've just refused to care. I've refused to care too much about
to stress over them.
Yeah,
right. Because you know, I've got other stuff going on. But MODOK, to me, the one part of the movie that I really enjoyed was, because keep in mind, this is Darren Cross. This isn't the comic book MODOK, George.
Yeah.
That's not who this is.
That's what I knew. That I was like, they really just combined two characters because they're like, all right, they really put Yellow Jacket as which isn't Hank Pym also just Yellow Jacket?
Yeah.
If I recall.
Yep. So the Yellow Jacket persona has been thrown around so many different places, so many different times. Hank Pym has had, I believe, 4 or 5 different monikers that he's gone by. He's an incredibly complex, confusing character.
Isn't he Ultron now or some weird thing?
He was bound with Ultron at some point. James, I see the look you're giving me, and it's
why I don't. That's why I stay away from. That's why I just read X-Men.
Wait, hold on. You read X-Men to not have a complicated.
Listen, I just read one of Jonathan Hickman's like page-long essay pages in the middle of the comic that tries to explain everything, and I go, "Yeah, all right." And I continue.
I guess that makes sense.
That's where like I need your help because Jonathan Hickman confuses the hell out of me, and I'm like. I told our mutual friend Brandon Blocksdorf, I'm like, I'm a simpleton when it comes to this stuff, complete simpleton. That's why I can't handle Hickman's X-Men. But I'm glad someone else can. I loved the line going back to MODOK. I loved the line at the end where his death is a complete joke when he says, "I died an Avenger."
Oh yeah, that was a little bit funny.
I laughed my ass off, James.
We were always brothers, Scott. He's just like.
And they're like, sure you did.
He's like, well, yeah, why not? He's dying. Let's just give it to him.
That line
even knew him in the first movie.
So yeah, I mean, he's a ridiculous character done ridiculously. You know, I get some of the gripes with him, but he was never going to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you instead of going 50-50, like he's a ridiculous character, but we got to like make him edgy and you know, we got to make him at least be taken seriously. I'm actually glad they didn't try to do that because it's really hard to take a floating head somewhat seriously.
Yeah.
So if I have to take him completely ridiculously, at least my gripe is, oh, that ridiculous character, he was so ridiculous. Okay, that sounds kind of fitting then. So that's my take on him. But you know, five minutes after I was done in the theater, I was like, okay, cool, moving on.
Yeah.
So that's my hot-ish, lukewarm, months-long take on MODOK.
Have they ever mentioned AIM in the MCU? I can't remember.
No.
Yes.
Wait,
yes.
yeah. Yeah.
So if you go back all the way back, boys and girls, go all the way back to Iron Man 3. And
Oh.
Aldrich Killian,
Oh
the
shit, you're right.
Guy Pearce's character, he is the creator of AIM in the MCU because he hands Tony the card that says, hey, I'm starting this thing called Advanced Idea Mechanics, and he
Okay. So
Oh.
they could have tried to do a regular
you
MODOK,
could
but
have, you totally
whatever.
could have.
I don't know. I just thought it
I
was
feel like
bizarre that he
they'll
showed up at this movie, and the whole time I was just like, why would Kang even save him? But whatever.
That is $1 million question. Why would Kang save him?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I do not have a good answer for that one.
just turn him into
I don't
a
think Kang
little...
does because he seemed to like fucking hate MODOK.
There was no anything there. It was literally just, hey, just don't talk in front of me. And that's all you ever
Yeah.
get. And then he's like, I don't know how to not be a dick. And then he goes, fuck you. And you're like,
My name is Darren and I'm not a dick.
My name is Darren and I'm not a dick.
We're supposed to like,
Uh,
We're
was there
glad
something
he
we
learned from
missed? And it
the
was like, no, this is just it. And you're like, okay. I guess that's
The one thing I do appreciate about you guys, this is we got through our entire review of Quantumania on Across the Bifrost and didn't even mention MODOK.
Oh
Really?
man, no, that's the main
We got to
topic,
the
man.
end, and I said to my buddy Faz and Haley, our other friend, we're like, oh shit, we totally forgot to talk about MODOK. And so at least I get all this MODOK energy out now.
That's hilarious because I guess that kind of leans into like my point that like they could have removed MODOK from this movie entirely and it would have been the same.
And hey, like if you're out there and you want like a ridiculous version of MODOK, but maybe not the one that we got in this film, go check out Patton Oswalt's series
Yeah,
MODOK.
that's actually a pretty funny MODOK show. I still find that one weird, but it's if you're looking for that silly, that'll do it.
Because I think Patton Oswalt's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he actually has even written some comics. He's helped write some comics that star MODOK. So if you want to go check out other MODOK stuff that's in like multimedia, go check out I believe it's a Hulu series.
Yeah, it is.
That'd be a good thing to check out.
I'm shocked it's not being removed right now because Disney Plus and Hulu are removing a bunch of content to
we'll see.
get tax breaks, I believe, for like cut costs. On the I just want to say really fast, on the chopping block is actually Willow and the Jeff Goldblum show from Disney Plus.
No, I love that show.
That was a good show.
Yeah,
I learned so much about sneakers.
I think the movie
so excited
for Willow
about denim.
will still be there, but it's the Willow series that's getting taken away. So I'm watching. I'm on like season 2 of Jeff Goldblum right now. I'm like going through it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
This is
And
why
then I
you
looked
should
at the other
like
stuff
support
that
the
I had
writer's
on the
strike
list that's
because
being removed.
fucking streaming is getting like literally making it so that some shows will just be obliviated or whatever.
They might put them on another streamer just to make money off of them, to license them, but also I think apart from Jeff Goldblum, I don't think anyone wants to. The stuff they're taking off does seem like stuff no one would want to add to their catalog, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my only thing for MODOK that I would say they could have done differently is, I don't even know if you'd want him in this movie, but just in terms of his character, if it wasn't Darren, just literally don't even explain it. Just be like, hey, MODOK, is the blah, blah, blah ready? And it's just like straight up dude with like merge the face a bit with the mask where it looks more comic accurate if you want it to. That way you don't throw people off with having one or the other. But then it's just like, yes, I'm MODOK, blah, 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 blah. And just don't explain it. And then you're just like, yeah, it's if you're a comic guy, you just go, yeah, it's MODOK. And then you don't really have any questions for it. And then everyone else is just like, well, I mean, the amount of randomness in this film already, I don't think it changes much in terms of like the average audience person going to this and watching at that point.
Honestly, if they had just had Kang turn some random person in the quantum realm into a supercomputer just because he needed one, like that would have gone a little bit farther to show like Kang's cruelty. But like, I don't know, them making it just Darren survived somehow is just like, oh, okay.
At the end of Ant-Man 1, he gets sucked into the quantum realm and becomes a murderous supercomputer.
Yeah, somehow.
Classic Darren.
Classic Darren.
Classic Darren.
All right. More importantly, our very special Kang, or Kangs, I guess you would say, because we got first Kang, in Loki, and we're like, yeah,
Yeah,
he's
He
talking
Who
about the main
Remains.
king that we're like gonna get in Ant-Man 3, and it is the main king that we get in Ant-Man 3, and then he's not there anymore, and you're
Yeah,
like,
that's why I'm really confused. I'm like, wait, okay, so is he dead? Dead? That Kang is dead, but there's like infinite other Kangs,
just not as
apparently.
important
But
king.
like but He Who Remains should have been the more dangerous one because he won. He beat all the others.
I
So
mean, literally the one that
what's
was
going on?
so I don't know a lot about King. I just know he is like multiverse time man who does a lot of crazy stuff. Like I'm pretty sure he took like in what was it, like an Uncanny Avengers, when I briefly read it, he had taken, I think it was like Apocalypse or someone's two kids, and like time sped them up into like adults as his like adopted children to fight the Uncanny Avengers. And it's just like, yeah, he has that power. He could do that pretty quickly. Like this is just how Kang is. And the whole thing is he's Kang the Conqueror. He conquers everything he can. And we get that Kang in Ant-Man 3. And this is like, that's the extent of my knowledge of Kang. And I'm thinking, okay, so he's gonna do something and either get trapped, he'll kill Ant-Man or something, or he'll find a way out, and that'll lead into, the next of phase 5 and 6 of kind of him rising to power. And it's not the case. And instead we do see like, yeah, the multiverse of Kangs, but the whole thing was they feared this Kang. This was supposed to be the king of Kangs, and now
Yeah,
he's
like
gone already.
here's the Rickest Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was so terrifying that they banished him
Which
to the quantum realm outside of time and space.
it's confusing because like each king has like a, well, if you kill me, you're gonna, I can't stop what's coming if you kill
Yeah,
me.
that was the other thing. Like this Kang and Ant-Man also did the same thing that He Who Remains did, where he's just like, well, if you kill me, I can't stop all the other Kangs. Like, what? Okay.
So that's my question. Is the one in Loki, was he referring to Kang the Conqueror or the Kang
I assumed
dynasty?
he was more warning about just like the infinite Kangs and just there being another multiversal war where there's just like endless death and destruction.
Okay.
But I don't know.
So you think, Ryan?
So here's the thing with Kang. Kamran hit on this, then, and like I said, complete amateur. I've read a few comic books. And here's what I'll say about Kang. Nothing is ever off the table with this character. Whether what you guys are saying is completely on the spot, or if they're going to go in a completely different way, going towards phases 5 and 6. Nothing with this character is ever out of question because all you have to do is say, oh, now it's this different Kang, or that was a different Kang, or this is a different version of that character at a different, like, we're going to see it in I know we're going to get to the post-credit scenes for this film, but like Loki season 2, we already see Victor Timely show up.
Yeah.
It's
Which is
another
like,
version.
is that like Proto King, or is that
It's another time displaced Kang who's got another got another scheme in the works. And I think that is both, it can be the frustrating part of this character because with Kang it's like, where do I begin? Where does his story begin? Even if you go like on a comics database site to look at, where should I start reading for Kang? Well, which version of him do you want to start reading? The Nathaniel Richards version? Do you want to read Kid Kang first? Do you want to read Rama Tut first? Do you want, like, where do you want to start? It's really difficult.
Oh, so the Pharaoh Kang is actually like canon?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
All of those Kangs.
I remember seeing it in some panels. I didn't read the book, but I remember seeing like previews and stuff. They showed like a bunch of them.
Yeah, like all the versions, Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, all of these are versions of this character. So his history is really complicated. It's harder to parse out than most characters. He's not like say the Hulk or Spider-Man, where you just start at the beginning and move forward. I think that's also a thing that might save them depending on how the Jonathan Majors stuff falls out, that
Yeah.
might save them a little bit. Obviously, the situation dealing with Jonathan Majors itself is its own thing. But if the studio has to course correct
and recast,
this is the character to course correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh.
So
I didn't even think of that.
I had a conversation with my sister-in-law the other day, who's a big Marvel movies fan, but not, had never picked up a comic book. And she said, "What are they going to do?" I'm like, "Whatever they have to or want to do. They don't have to freak out here." Like, now I from a PR point of view, I get it. You don't want the star of your next big, multi-phase, saga to be in this kind of trouble and to have done or allegedly have done this thing. But if there's a character from comic books that you could do this with and it wouldn't be that big of a deal, it would be this character. So Kang is both incredibly complicated and also incredibly malleable. You can do so much and you can do a lot with him. You could turn on a dime. And yeah, fans will bitch, but they always do. So, but from a storytelling point of view, it's not really that big of a thing to freak out about. You can do a lot with this character.
Interesting.
Okay.
Sorry for my TED talk, everybody.
No, it works.
No, it's just like
it helps. It helps clear like how it works for us, for sure.
Yeah, like as you were saying it made sense because like in that post-credit scene, like you'd see not just like human Kangs, but like what look like Skrull and other ones. So like, yeah, it could literally just be like, yeah, if we need to recast it, it's just a different Kang.
Right.
It's also funny because you like sing King the Conqueror, you're like, oh, okay, this is a hard dude. This is like a guy who's very reserved. Like he knows exactly what he's doing. And then when you see the multiverse of like the whole dynasty of kings, some of them are just like,
yeah, like, woo!
Right? Like,
and I'm
not
like,
all of them are dark edgelord, conquerors.
Yeah,
some of them are just crazy characters.
God, it was very interesting.
And if anyone's hoping to jump in on the Kang proper, there's a few places you could start. I guess you could go back to his first appearance, Kang's proper first appearance in Avengers 8. It's a completely bonkers issue of an Avengers story, as most of the first ones are. That was the comic we actually chose to review with Quantumania, and my co-hosts were like, "Why did you do this to us?" I'm like, because it's the roots of the character and no one else is going to do this. But there's been a few comics recently that might help people that want to go and look at, recommendations for this character. Last few years, there's been a comic that's come out at the end of the year called Timeless, and it's Timeless 2021, Timeless 2022, both written by Jed MacKay, who is currently writing Avengers now. And has done Moon Knight forever, and is a great writer. But the Timeless issues are fantastic because they are across time and space, and Kang is looking at the whole Marvel universe from his his nexus outside of time and space, like James was saying. And it's fantastic. Another series I would recommend is from 2021. Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, who are currently writing Guardians of the Galaxy, they wrote a miniseries where Kang fights himself across time. And it's very, very cool. So, sorry, I just thought I'd get those recommendations in there before we leave the Kang discussion. But I know Kang is going to be a discussion for the next few years in these.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. No, that's good though. Okay. But is King the Conqueror like the King we saw in Man 3? Is that usually the main Kang? Is that?
I would say appearance wise, at least it's the main visual that we get of Kang.
Okay, interesting.
In my opinion,
it'll be very interesting where they go with this then.
Yeah,
like if it's just like each Marvel movie is just them fighting a Kang, and it's just like so it's just Kang nonstop. Everyone's got a Kang now they have to deal with, and I'm just like, all right. We're gonna be kinged out by the end of this, like in 2 phases. We're never gonna want to see King again.
You would run out of movies before you would run out of Kangs. We'll put it that way.
Which is insane, considering Marvel's like
every once in a while we just get another Avengers versus Kang, like 2, 3, 4, 5.
Why not?
Pull off the mask. Kang, what are you doing here? He's like, would have gone away with 2 for you meddling kids and young Avengers, considering like there's like 85 of you now that they've introduced at this point.
So glad you beat me to that joke.
Yeah, God. The amount of like young characters they've thrown in because they're like, we're gonna kill off people or make them leave at a certain point, so it's gonna be a lot of kids to work with the current audiences next. It's very obvious. Next up though, into the movie itself, really. All right, Ant-Man 1 and 2, I've actually thoroughly enjoyed previously because they aren't like the other movies. They're just because my biggest issue with a lot of Marvel films have always been that they have these awful quips that make me want to punch a wall half the time because they're just not good. I've never liked the quips. They've always been annoying. They were sort of charming when Iron Man first does them in the very beginning, and then after that, everyone started doing them, and it was just lackluster as hell. But Ant-Man specifically didn't do that and somehow just went, no, it's Paul Rudd. We're just gonna do a comedy. Like this is a small stakes comedy. There's nothing crazy going on where everyone else is doing some crazy I'm saving the world thing. It's just Scott going like, hey, I'm gonna stop this guy from doing bad corporate shit in the first one to then, hey, I'm gonna stop like a ghost woman from doing ghost stuff, and then that's it. And he comes out of like the San Francisco Bay, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And it's like, it's just like the whole point of it is, I hope I don't get caught being out of house arrest, and that's the only thing. And I'm like, oh, it's simple, it's small, it's easy. Like I appreciate this. This one's like, look, it's Kang the Conqueror, and you're like, but it's an Ant-Man movie, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna see how it goes, and you're like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Because usually it's just a comedy. And this one, they try to keep it still being a comedy. But the fact is, like, they've increased the stakes by a lot, even if it's on a micro level, quite literally. They really, like, throw in probably the thing that would be second to the Endgame battle of, like, the biggest fight in any Marvel movie, I think, I want to say. Am I correct? I think I'm correct. Like, is looking through all, like, if you just quickly scan your brain of previous Marvel films, I don't think there's one with a battle that big.
I mean, maybe, yeah, because it literally was just like probably thousands of Kang soldiers trying to fight off Giant Scott.
You could maybe do like the climactic battle at the end of the first Guardians movie. That one's pretty big.
Yeah.
That's like mega spaceship battle.
Yeah, it had the shield, big shield.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of Nova Corps ships, a lot of Dark Aster ships.
Yeah,
that's the only one that really comes to mind. But I think you might be right.
Yeah, because the other one would be Thor Ragnarok, but that's just like 4 people on a bridge fighting like 3 dozen guys and a wolf. Oh yeah, no, that's the best Thor movie for sure. Even though it's the worst Thor movie at the same. In terms of Thor lore, it's the worst Thor movie. In terms of just being a fun movie, it's like the best one of the 4.
Oh yeah, Thor lore. That movie scores like a 0 out of 10. But it's funny. Like that's the movie that people will be like, oh my gosh, Ragnarok is so good. I'm like, you're right, but like it's barely a Thor movie.
Yeah. But how did people feel about just combining comedy with the high stakes seriousness of Kang and just
that was
what they do in the quantum realm?
One of my bigger problems with this movie was just like you, I really liked the tone of the first 2 movies. It's just like a fun, funny comedy with like some heist elements to them. But this one, it's just like there was such a weird, it felt like tonal whiplash between this is funny and goofy, like funny dick jokes and shit like that, but like, or don't be a dick jokes, not like whatever. But then you go to like, holy shit, Kang has found us. This whole like settlement of exiles is being like slaughtered, and it just was really weird to keep going back and forth between like, this is serious, people are fucking dying, Kang is a literal monster worse than you could ever imagine. Haha, this is funny, we're having fun. It felt weird to me. Like it didn't quite mesh as well as they were probably hoping it would.
Yeah. For me, it's like looking at Guardians 2 really fast. Like that one, I felt like is probably the best example of what not to do. Where the transitions were really bad compared to like, oh, this is really serious. He killed his mom. Look, it's Pac-Man. And I'm like, this is fucking stupid. This is really bad in terms of transitioning. And this one, I think, does a better job, but still doesn't do a good job of it at the same time, where you're like, oh, okay, here's two really big villains from the comics, and here's Ant-Man still being Ant-Man, and here's Slime Glob Man being Slime Glob Man with the tentacles.
Yeah, he's like, I have holes now, and then he just like eats someone.
And you're like, what the hell is that? Because it's like right after that, Kang kills the hammer guy. Like he shoots like the thing from his hammer head. It's literally a dude with like a
The guy like
like a
I
he
think that guy
explodes.
was supposed to be a sentient like hydrogen atom, maybe.
Okay, but yeah, he dies, and you're like, oh, okay, and then not everyone else dies, but
that
like
sucked. I like
Kang
that
literally
guy.
starts disintegrating people. Like they're just literally being disintegrated, like freaking, which is insane. You're like, oh, there's a lot more in this half comedy. There's probably more death in this than all the Avengers movies combined when you really think about it. Because I mean, like the first one, there is literally zero death. They just show a bunch of aliens wrecking cars, and that's it. And then
Quicksilver died in
Ultron, they reference that people
they saved
might
everyone
have
else
died
but
off
Quicksilver.
screen, maybe. And then like Infinity War. Yeah, no, still no one died except for the Sand People. And then like freaking Endgame, I guess some people might have died in the big battle, but you barely even see it. So really, ironically enough, this third Ant-Man movie has more death than any of them, which is insane. They show death in anything that's not on Earth. If it's like the quantum realm or like in Guardians in Space. If you notice that. And then maybe I guess like Doctor Strange 2 sort of has some crazy stuff, but that's
or just Xandar blowing up or wrecking
off-screen death.
Yeah, like we missed that.
We'll completely like go a full Death Star on a planet that isn't Earth, but if it's on Earth, we're pretty much all safe.
Yeah. God.
Like with the stakes, I agree. I agree with the idea that like comedy is really hard to do, you know, in these big, like huge action, big stakes movies outside of like that quick like quip. I will say that if there's one character, if you would have tried to make Scott like too serious in this movie, it would have also been a deterring from who Scott Lang is. And who like the modern version of the character has become, not just in comic books, but also like we know who Scott is. Like we are very familiar with who the character is supposed to be. And like at the beginning of the movie, him like talking about like, I was an Avenger, I wrote this book, like that all feels so Scott Lang to me.
The first pre-Quantum Realm felt just like the other anime movies, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then like, yeah.
And I think that you can't change who Scott is, but you also can't like, you can't change who Kang is, like in his ruthlessness and in his conquering mentality. So like when they clash at the end, I was like, oh my gosh, are we gonna lose Scott Lang at the end of this movie? I legitimately like, maybe that's me being the
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
This also would show like, hey, you know, this shit happens. Like not everyone's gonna make it.
Like I legitimately thought we were gonna lose him at the end. And you know, maybe that's me being a simpleton, maybe that's the director and the writers doing a great job of teasing a big character loss.
I was kind of hoping he would die just because it would bring more.
It also makes sense because they were setting up his daughter as like she has a suit that's literally the exact same as his.
Yeah, it's not like Wasp, it's like Ant-Man.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we get to see, like we're gonna probably get to see Cassie Lang as Stature later on in like her fullness, because Cassie's death later on in comics during an event called Children's Crusade, Cassie dies, and that's like a huge turning point for Scott. So like I was like, oh man, are they gonna do the reverse of this, where Scott dies and Cassie's the one that has the moment that's like, oh, I'm gonna be a part of this team that goes after Kang, and then like no one dies at the end. I'm like, okay, maybe we'll get to that later. But the comedy and the big stakes, I get, like it's a fine balance. Like it's really hard to hit just right. And maybe with Ant-Man it's easier because like lower stakes and you get to have more of those comedic moments. Like the final fight scenes in Ant-Man 1 and Ant-Man 2 are kind of like comedy fight scenes.
It's Thomas the Tank Engine coming out of a house.
Right.
Yeah.
It works.
And if that hadn't been beaten to death in the trailers, I would have lost my shit. And like I still laugh because that's great. Like that's an Ant-Man joke. That's an Ant-Man joke. And like constantly, when he goes big at the end of Ant-Man 2, that's great because we've been waiting for him to do that since Civil War.
Yeah.
But anyway, like it's hard to do. I get that it didn't really land for everybody. It didn't really land for me because I wasn't sure how to feel at the end.
Well, even Scott at the end, it was just like, yeah, cool. We saved it. Saved the day. We beat King. Wait, didn't he say that there was something bad coming if we beat him? And then, oh no, did I make things worse? Holy shit, did I just kill everyone? It's probably fine.
Yeah.
like, but that feels Scott Lang.
Yeah, that was very Scott Lang.
Like that feels good. And also like let's not overlook like Paul Rudd is just charming.
Yeah,
like
he is.
Paul Rudd can get away with stuff in a movie that not a lot of actors could because he's just so damn charming.
Captain America, I'm shaking your hand too long.
Right, like dumb jokes that he delivers they're met with a sense of like, Paul, you're hilarious. Like you're a sweetheart. But yeah, I guess that's my meandering thoughts on that one.
I do think it wasn't as because I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it on Disney Plus. I missed it. And
okay.
It's the second movie I missed in theaters. Like the very first one was I don't know how, but it was Thor Dark World, I think, was the only other one I missed in theaters.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad as like, everyone, when I got all the feedback from it, everyone was like, this is really bad. I didn't like it, blah, blah. And I watched it and I'm like, I wasn't like going like, it was a great movie or a good movie or anything, but I'm like, it's not as bad as everyone said it was. I didn't feel as like, I think it's also just because you could throw Paul Rudd in anything and Paul Rudd alone usually can like carry something just with his charm, really. And it's hilarious because you look at him and he's like, oh, he's so young. It's like, no, dude, that dude's old. And you're like, oh, right, I forgot.
Yeah.
He just ages so well. But
he's the sexiest man alive according to this year,
which is
crazy. Like how that
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But yeah, he's able to carry it well enough. And even I will say, like, it's even with the transitions not being clean like I'd want them to be, they did good stuff where like when Cassie grows and her and Scott, she like, oh my god, we're both big.
Like, Dad,
I'm really
so big.
hungry. And he's like, I've never gotten to do this before because no one's ever big
really
like
want
me.
Some citrus.
Yeah.
It's like weird, right?
I was like, what the honestly, like I still think, I mean, I know it might be an unpopular opinion, just to show the stakes even in the middle of a comedy, if they had killed Scott off, because like, and King didn't die and they still kept him as like maybe the main king, it would show his threat where it's like, hey, do you remember the dude that more or less was the catalyst to save everyone and bring everyone back? Like without him, they would not have been able to succeed specifically. Yeah, he's dead now, and the next big bad is coming. Like, it's the thing of like where Thanos is like, yeah, he took out Thor, and it's like Thor's alive, and it's like, oh, never mind, the stakes aren't as big as I thought. But he killed Xandar. Yeah, I'm sure that was cool if they put it on the screen, but we also didn't see that either. We're just Grimace is just doing his thing with his fucking.
Like, wait, how'd Thanos get the first Infinity Stone? Oh, he killed the planet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, which I found out there was a like 40 minutes of Infinity War that was cut out. That was him taking down Xandar, apparently.
Maybe we'll get that as a Disney special.
And
someday.
they cut it because they didn't want the movie to be as long as Endgame. And I'm like, that literally was my main complaint, was Thanos has zero substance. You're supposed to go, oh my god, it's the big bad from the post credits we keep getting that no one actually knows about when they cheer, and they actually don't even know who that is.
No, you're basically just supposed to know him from the comics and just be excited that the guy from the comics is.
Yeah, and the average person doesn't know him, and you're just like, he's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And it's like, bro, you weren't even watching. What the hell are you talking about?
I think that's why, like,
here.
I think that's why the first thing they did was they show him like beating the shit out of the Hulk without even using the Power Stone, and you're just like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
It's like they show him, it's like, let him have his fun, and like, yeah, and all that shit goes down.
That was a spot-on Ebony Maw impression. I did enjoy it. Well, then he chokes Loki to death, and he
I
kills
will
in front
pry
of
it from
Thor.
your corpse.
I'm sitting there at the beginning of Infinity War, I'm like, oh, so all the characters I love are dying. Fantastic. But like, I mean, it would have been, Cameron, what I'm basically hearing you say is you wanted Thanos to roll up to Xandar and call out Glenn Close and John C. Reilly, and you want just wreck shop on that the entire Nova Corps to just
They had it done. It was filmed apparently.
I just love that there's like, this is what was missing, him killing Glenn Close.
It wasn't even that, it's just the having him have some form of backstory, not just like when they're waiting on the planet, like, yeah, this used to be my home and then I destroyed it because stuff, and you're
Well,
like,
he didn't destroy it; it destroyed itself.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't even, it's whatever. See,
Well, that was the thing. He's like, "This is what happens if you don't listen to me.
that's why population
I'll
control is important.
just destroy half of everything so that not everything is destroyed."
I'm not all the way a bad guy. I'm like half a bad guy.
Yeah.
A necessary evil.
Oh, perfectly
Oh,
balanced.
speaking of, I don't know, like this is like a random bit of trivia. I don't know if like this is actually for real confirmed, but one of the things that you see in the in Quantumania in like the uh exile camp or whatever, or refugee camp, I guess, was like a bunch of the beings with like weird multicolored stone heads. Supposedly, that might be the remnants of the original Infinity Stones. When Thanos said, "I use the stones to atomize the stones," like, oh, so they're alive now in the quantum realm?
Oh, that's
Okay, maybe.
all right. That's
Or
I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but like I saw that somewhere and I was like, I could see that.
it could just be an Easter egg for conversations like this.
Yeah,
they're not important anymore. Once, like, remember we watched Loki, and they're like, "Yeah, everyone's got Infinity Stones. They're like great paperweights." And you're
that
like,
was so
I
funny.
loved that joke.
There's like infinite of these.
God.
I love it so much.
But next up, the overall, I guess, like the overall plot and anything notable with the heroes that they did.
Can I just jump in here and say, Evangeline Lilly had nothing to do in this movie.
You're correct.
Yeah, except for the one time when she like grabbed Scott in the whatever storm, probability storm.
She was
Like-
more like a foil for her mom, if anything.
Right. 'Cause, like, really, this should have been like, it should have been like called the Kang and Janet Van Dyne movie, with a little bit of Scott and Cassie, but almost no Hank, no.
Hank kept saying
Throughout
the movie, they keep specifically saying "holy shit."
Yeah.
That is like their favorite thing to say in that movie. Like,
Oh my god! Wait,
like right when
so
Hank sees Darren, he's like, "Holy shit!" He's like, they say, I can say at least 3 times they specifically say "holy shit" in that movie. At least 3.
I really like Hope's character. I like the Wasp as a character, not only in comics but also what Evangeline Lilly was able to do in her appearances as character. It's
They definitely
not
make her look like her mom is supposed to look in the comics, because they don't make her look like the short hairstyle and everything.
But like I loved Janet's story. I loved her, kind of holding back those things, but really Hope's only part of this movie was like, "Hey mom, tell us what's going on. Hey mom, tell us what's going on. Hey mom, tell us what's going on."
Mama, mommy.
She is the Stewie clip from Family Guy, the entire movie. And then she does like 1 or 2 things at the end. I'm like, if it's going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp, I feel like the Wasp should have had a little bit more to do in this movie. And that's most because I love the actress and I love the character. And that's like, I didn't come out of the movie, cursing to high hell that Hope was betrayed. But, it's just like, sometimes you want to see great actors do more. And I feel like she could have done more. I don't know what that would have been. But that was the only other character that I was really focused on. I was like, oh, I just wanted more of that.
Yeah.
In a movie like this, I don't know how you give more than what's already being given, because it was a little character heavy at times, but that's the only thing that I think I came away from wanting more of from a specific character.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it is weird that she did like barely anything in this movie, and she's like literally one of the title characters.
Right.
Yeah. Ever since they added her name in the second one?
Second one is when she's added to the mask.
Yeah. But it's just like the thing when she comes through at the end in the portal, and you're like, oh, he's not dying. I felt weird because I actually was like dismayed a bit. I was like, the drama's gone.
Yeah, that whole final confrontation, I was very confused because like Scott basically sacrifices himself to give them time to close the portal, and then Janet comes to help save Scott, and then they beat Kang, and the portal closes, and then they just open it again. So I was like, wait. So I thought the whole point was they're going to be stuck there. That's why it was a sacrifice. But they just were like, no, we'll give them 5 minutes. They'll be fine.
It wasn't.
Stay
So I was
lobby.
hoping when he said, I'm going to make sure you lose, I didn't want him to go to the thing and like make it blow up again. I wanted him to go and like destroy the portal so he couldn't get out. And that would have been like, oh, it's a two-way thing. You need both sides in order for it to work. So then it would have been like, oh, perfect. And then like he goes and kills Scott, and it's like, I'll find another way. And then it goes on to the next film. And I've been like, oh, that was really dope. Like that would have been like, okay. But yeah, they didn't do that. It was which is fine. You get the monologue after at the end, which is funny, but still, it's definitely still missed some really good points that could have been.
Yeah, Janet though frustrated me throughout this entire movie because basically everything that went wrong was because she refused to explain anything.
Yep.
And then she just kept getting mad at everyone for getting the consequences that she could have told them how to avoid, and as if it's like their fault, which I guess you could see it that way, because she literally was like, just don't touch the quantum realm, but she didn't tell them why or like what the dangers were.
Right.
So it's like, it's a little bit weird to be so like, it's all your fault. It's like, it's not really all their fault.
Yeah, she's guilty of the thing they're in by omission.
Yeah.
She did not give the information that they could have used to avoid the whole thing. And then especially, James, I agree with you, man. Like once they're down
that
there,
really started bothering me.
Like logically, I would be like, if I'm Hope or I'm Hank, and I know they get separated from Scott and Cassie, but like if I'm anyone in their crew, I get so furious. It's like, lady, swallow your pride. We're all gonna die. Yeah. So like, I get it, like Kang's a big deal, but as long as all of us know that Kang's a big deal, we can handle it together, or we can at least try to.
Yeah.
It's like you holding on to this secret actually does us more harm. And like as an audience member, I'm like, it's not like these are complete strangers. It's not like Hank and Hope like have no history with her. It's your daughter and your husband. Like, share the information so that we can all not die down here, and maybe stop this threat that you clearly said is a big deal. But like, it's not like you're dealing with two idiots, like one of the smartest scientists in the Marvel universe and a superhero who's very capable herself. Like, you can probably MacGyver something with those two people and try to meet this threat.
Yeah, I was getting so mad when they, like, by the time they got a ship and were on their way to meet like Bill Murray, I was just like, okay, Hope is literally asking for more information now. You have time. You're safe for the moment. Why are you still refusing to give them anything? Like, I don't know, it just got frustrating. And then for Hank, his ants were more important than he was in this movie, which
he was
fine.
The foil for the ants.
It's just like, I got really confused in the beginning of the movie, and when Scott's like, oh, cool, what do you have in your ants build this time? And he's like, oh no, I'm not having them build anything. They're smart ants. They're really like capable and can totally build super technology on their own. And I'm just like, that's not how Ant-Man works. He's using chemical signals to tell the ants how to do things because they're dumb little organic robots, and you could do that. But you're never going to convince me, like, if he had a line where he's like, oh, I genetically experimented with the ants, so now they're super smart and easier to communicate with.
That's the back door.
Fine. But they didn't do that. They were just like, no. Ants are actually really smart. And I was like,
just ask the cordyceps.
I don't believe you. Yeah.
God. Yeah, no. I think too, like Bill Murray just is sitting there for 5 minutes, right? That's really that's just kind of what that is. And they use him as that, and just hey, she was fucking in the quantum realm the whole time, and it's like,
I was here for 30
thanks.
years, I had needs.
Yeah. I was like, great, okay.
Like I love
Then
it. Even Hank is like, oh yeah, so did I.
he
And
goes
Janet's
full,
just like, or Hope's just like, yeah, no.
and Hope is like our Hope
Hope has
is
lost all hope.
you know what? That's a great way of putting that.
I did like that one line though. It was like Hank, what, like, why didn't it work out with the other ladies? Like, she wasn't you, baby. It's like,
Bruh, they got that
that's
from
kind of
Kingdom
cute, I guess.
They got that from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh wait,
I think
what?
anyone got. I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever
Indiana
heard that
Jones when
phrase.
him and Marion are in like one of the trucks. I love Indiana Jones. Someone to know this. At one point, it's like, oh yeah, I've been with all these other women, and she's like, well, what happened? And he looks down at her because it's like, you know, Elsa, and even though she died, so that ruled her out. But what's her face from Temple of Doom, and like, I guess you assume other women all the time because he's Dr. Frickin' Jones, like he's the ladies' man.
Like literally every like woman in his classes is just like, I want to fuck you.
But like he's like, oh yeah, he's like, well, what happened? And he looks back at her and goes like, they weren't you, and keeps going, and she's just like, but like, yeah, that's where that line comes from. So he got that from
I didn't even think of that.
Jones.
I love that Kamran's pull is the worst Indiana Jones movie.
How dare you? It was the worst, but I still enjoyed it because that Indiana Jones is the one franchise where it could probably do something bad, but that's my one Achilles heel of it. Doesn't really matter for me. I'll like
You'll
it probably no matter
excuse
what.
anything they do because it's there.
Which is an easy one because it's only like 4 movies.
Right.
And 2 of them are actually some of the greatest films of all time, so it kind of works out.
I agree. Temple of Doom is just so awesome.
Oh god. I remember loving that movie as a kid, and then I went back and watched it at some point, and I was just like, wow, this movie is bad. What?
But it's not bad. How dare you? It's just
so,
you know.
Completely ignoring where Kamran wants to take this to talk about dialogue.
But anything else with the characters or the plot?
Nothing. I mean, nothing that's burning that hasn't already been said throughout the course of our conversation.
Okay, then real fast.
I mean, we didn't really talk about Cassie much, but I don't know if there's really much to talk about.
There's not
I don't
much.
think there is.
Nah, it's just like I'm trying to be like my dad, kind of, and get.
I did like the one scene when they got like to the refugee camp, and Scott's like freaking out about everything, and Cassie's just like, "Dad, drink the ooze." He's like, "What?"
Oh yeah, that was like you're just like what? Her like face is like covered, and you're like.
Yeah.
I like the parenting. Honestly, like as a dad, I like the parenting moments where it's like he's showing her how to like, you know, you gotta go small, then go big. Like, you know, I love those things. Like I'm gonna really hit on that when we get to Guardians 3 with Drax and stuff. Yeah. But like I love seeing Scott as a dad to a daughter that can actually be in the conflict, because Cassie has been around for, you know, all movies. And she's really like Scott's heartbeat, like, and his purpose for like keeping going on, you know, through adversity. But now he actually gets to be with his daughter as an equal, fighting something together. And I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. But their relationship was the thing I found most interesting, is that she wants to follow in his footsteps, but he's like, no, like it's, you know, it's not that easy. It's not that simple. So anyway, I really liked Cassie in this, but yeah, I don't think there's a ton to talk about with her.
And this is like her 3rd actress or something now. I don't really know at this point.
I think,
yeah.
Well, after the blip, they had to age her up.
No, I mean, wasn't the actress from Endgame different from this one?
I think so.
Yeah. You know what? Now that I like trying to think back to what the actress in Endgame looked like, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think we've like there's no other last things you want to say before we get to the last 2 parts. Okay.
Not really.
Ranking the 3 Ant-Man films, the Ant-Man trilogy. How would you guys, Ryan, if you want to start off, what would be your number 3 through 1?
I would go number one. I think that movie is just like even as a solo, don't even think about the rest of the Marvel universe kind of movie. That movie is just a fun movie. It's enjoyable. The characters mean things in that movie, and I really enjoyed that one. I would put Quantumania actually number 2.
Really?
because they at least went big with it. They tried to do something that was bigger in scope with Ant-Man, and I think it would have been really safe for them to not do it. I think it would have been really safe for them to just do another heist movie, do another science-y movie like that. I think Jonathan Majors makes this movie a little bit better because, let's be honest, he's a good actor. Like
oh yeah,
he's in everything now.
This movie is really bolstered by some great acting, even if it's been given kind of crazy subject matter to go off of. And sometimes you can get away with that in a movie that's this bonkers. And I would put number 2 third, only because it felt like so much of a copy and paste of the first one. And I get it. Ant-Man was like, when the first Ant-Man movie came out, people didn't know who Ant-Man was. Like, let's be honest, people had no idea who this character was. And we're going to talk about that in Guardians too. Before the first Guardians movie, this team,
I didn't know who they were.
Like, and people that say they do either are epic comic book fans or liars. So when Ant-Man came out, like, number 1 hit so well, and I get why you do number 2 the way you did it. I totally get it. And there's some great performances in there. Ghost is not that important of a villain, or I don't think it was that great of a performance that it was like, oh, I have to see more of this character.
Well, she'll be back in Thunderbolts.
I know she'll be back in Thunderbolts, and I'm hoping that we just get more from her, and not just the I don't know, kind of the paper thin kind of premise of her character. But there's some things in number 2 I like, but that's how I would do it. 1, 3, and 2.
Okay. What about you, James?
I would still put number 1 as my most liked one. I just thought it was such a fun, like, just unexpectedly good adventure or whatever, and just like, I'm not like the biggest fan of heist movies, but I still like can enjoy them. Like, I liked Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. So it was fun seeing like a superhero version of like, how do you steal something when you have like super tech and stuff like that. I thought that was cool. I thought the villain for the first one was like perfectly like a counter to the main character, because it's like basically the same abilities, but just like he has no morals.
Yeah.
But I would probably put the second one as my second favorite, just because like, I do hear you, Ryan, that like it is very similar to the first one, and that's probably why I like it so much. And my only complaint is probably just that, like, yeah, Ghost is not like that interesting of a antagonist, but I still had a lot of fun with that movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I really liked the aspect of like, well, he's on house arrest technically, so like half the movie they keep cutting back to like, what's the ant doing? And just
and
like,
Randall Park makes that so much good as Jimmy Woo.
that was so funny. Just like,
at least in the third one, just like they're having lunch together.
like that in like
actual friends.
That in like in WandaVision, he shows up and he does the sleight of hand trick with the card to show the progression that he learned how to do it because Scott impressed him. And so I thought, like, so I had a lot of fun with Ant-Man 2 or Ant-Man and the Wasp. But and the third one, like, I still liked it, just I didn't have as much fun as I did with the other two. So I think that's why, even though I still liked it, it's just I didn't like it as much as the other two.
Well, I just want to quickly echo something James just said right there. Like, I enjoy all these movies.
Yeah.
Like, even when we get to Guardians, like, I enjoy all these movies. Like, it's not like I'm gonna sit here and shit talk them, you know, to high heaven and, like, you know, quit my Disney Plus subscription over it. Like, I don't care that much. But all these movies are at least enjoyable movies.
For sure.
I gotcha. For me, I think number 3 was number 3. It, like I said, just transitions weren't necessarily the best, and it didn't give me the full laughs that the first two did. Otherwise, I think, yeah, it wasn't, like I said, I don't think it was as bad as everyone else that it was, but it wasn't great either, or I think it was okay. This is actually tough. I almost want to put Ant-Man and Wasp as number 1,
Ooh.
surely for the fact it's so stupid, but the whole time I forget what's his face is like when he sees ghosts, he's like Baba Yaga.
I was just thinking like you know what Quantumania was missing? The Baba Yaga guy and like
Your
yo, so
crew.
this is what's going down
Yeah,
with
have
like
your
Daniel
crew.
Pena.
And I'm like, oh my god, it's so tough because Ant-Man 1 establishes everything you need for 2, and then 2 just furthers it. So I'm so tempted to just, you know what, I'm going, you know, Ant-Man 1, number 2, Ant-Man 2, number 1, surely, because it's just so much fun. You have the most fun because it's straight up just like, hey, what if we like kind of turned Ferris Bueller's Day Off into a Marvel movie, and freaking Jimmy Woo is the principal, and like
That's amazing.
yeah, that's really what it is. So yeah, that's my
make a lot
number
of
one.
sense.
And it's just him showing back up and being like, "It's me. I'm here the whole time." And he's like, "Are we friends? No, get out of my house." And he's just like, it's so good. And even to the fact that he won over Cassie's stepdad, where now he loves him, and he's like, "You leave Scott alone." And I'm like, dude, this is the peak of Ant-Man. This is
Dude,
the
just
best
like
we've gotten.
he does the card trick in the beginning in the doorway, and like the stepdad's just like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, the whole thing is, I love Ant-Man for being comedies, and this is the best comedy. That's how I'm going with it.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I think what you said there is really accurate. Like, don't look at Ant-Man, at least the first 2 movies. Don't look at them as superhero movies. Look at them as comedies featuring a superhero.
Yeah,
like you'll enjoy them much more.
Yeah, God. And then last thing, we get that little teaser for Loki season 2, and we have I'm making electricity king, which is hilarious.
I love that like old haircut and everything. It was so perfect.
It's
like,
so
the
cartoony.
mustache.
It's ridiculous how cartoony it is. But I'll just say really fast. I wasn't sure seeing like the end of Loki season 1 how it felt like all their minds changed because of like the time distortion. And in this one, it seemed, because I was like, oh, are they his enemies again? And it's like, no, it seems like they listened to him because Mobius went with him to figure this out.
He's literally like, this can't be the guy.
So it did make me a little excited for Loki, because even though I didn't think Loki was great, I did enjoy it. So it's one of the more, I'd say it's probably one of the only things I'm looking forward to this phase. So I'm like, okay, I'm excited for this specific thing now a little bit. But did you guys have anything for season 2 of Loki, or for that post credits that we got?
I mean, as a massive Thor fan, and
of course, yeah, I didn't even think about it.
Well, as a fan of those characters, just I mean, I do a whole show about those characters. Like, I did not expect it. When we got to that point, I literally like gripped my chair and I was like, "What is this?" And then you're watching it unfold, and I'm like, oh, right, that makes total sense. It's kind of like I'm in the moment, watching Quantumania, and then I see Loki and Mobius show up, and I'm excited. Like, the fan in me was just like, I don't know what this means. It's completely unknown to me, but I already love it. And then we didn't really get news on when Loki 2 was going to come out, but now I can't wait for October. I'm so like stoked to get all the questions answered, because like we've got so many questions about this season and very few answers, and I like that. I like not knowing everything about a movie or a show before I go into it. I like being surprised. And I enjoy the fact that Tom Hiddleston has spoken very glowingly about what they're going to do in this season and the implications of it. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And this was the first visual we got of that. So, it's a little fond memory in the history of, Asgardian, Thor, Loki characters in the MCU.
Yeah. And in terms of just like phase 1 through 3 characters, like Loki and Bucky are probably the 2 I've always enjoyed the most. So
yeah, they're great characters.
Yeah. I will say too, if you ever, I don't know if you've done them already, but if you ever do episodes on Journey and the Mystery, like the Karen Gillan run, with young Loki, I actually read the crap out of those books, so I'd talk crap. I'd love those.
Kamran, you're giving a preview of our fall schedule of episodes right now. That's we're hoping to do that Journey to Mystery Kid Loki stuff. So
let me in. Let me talk about it. I love those books.
I mean, we've had those requested for us so many times, and it feels like this fall might be the right time.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah, because I remember reading that in New Mutants at the same time they did the Exiles crossover. I was like, this is actually fantastic. This is the team up I never knew I needed. It's great.
Everybody, I'm so happy right now.
Yeah, I'm really happy. But that's the only Thor stuff I've ever read was actually that, which I was thoroughly happy about it.
Gotta remedy that.
Yeah. Guardians 3. Time to talk Guardians 3. Right off the bat, of course, I wanted to just get out of the way. Just because I could hear James like next to me in the theater a little bit. And I was like, the fuck? I was like, what is that? It's just like at certain points. But what was the most emotional moment for you guys watching that movie?
I mean, easily for me, it was just like when Rocket's like friends were like killed in front of him, and it's like kind of his fault. And just like
it would have died.
What got me was like the like scream of just like rage and pain when like Lila dies in front of him, and like the fact that the High Evolutionary just like laughs at, not even like laughs, he's just like, oh, you're annoying me with your emotions. And it's just like you see like all of what makes Rocket what he is today, where like he was clever enough to like get a bunch of tools just in case he might need to build something at some point, and he builds a key out of his cell, and like he's trying to save all of his friends and he gets them all killed. And so that's one of the reasons why he's like, I don't like to work with people in the first movie. Except for
it makes the second movie just like a sliver better.
Yeah, and then like he picks up like the High Evolutionary's gun, and he's just like instantly murdering people, and it's like, oh well, that's why he has no problem with like murdering people. Like his thing is that he's covered in guns all the time.
Yeah,
so it's just like you get to see all of the things that led up to him being who he is now. And it's just like seeing that much pain in like one screen. Like the closest thing I can think of as like a similar example as like a single emotional scream that like really impacted me. This is going to be a weird tangent, but in Infamous First Light, the PS4 game. Yeah, there's like a moment where Fetch has like an emotional outburst like that literally is so like, I give such kudos to Laura Bailey for putting that much emotion into like a single sound. And I just thought that one moment with Rocket just like screaming over the body of his friend is just like, it got me.
Okay. For me, mine has always been the post neck breaking of Zod with Superman with Henry Cavill.
Oh yeah.
That scream, just disappointment. So freaking good. Okay.
Can I throw one in here, guys?
Yeah. Sure.
Sam Witwer doing Darth Maul, yelling Kenobi.
Oh my God, yeah.
I've been a Darth Maul kid since 1999.
Wait, which time? Because I feel like he does it like 4 times.
No, like at the end, at
the final duel,
end of their conflict in Rebels.
Oh, in
the desert by himself, and you just hear this guttural cry. And like we've all, because we've existed on the internet, we've seen Sam Witwer's like footage of him doing it in the sound booth. Oh my gosh, friggin' destroy.
Is he truly the chosen one? Yes. Yeah. He will avenge us all. That was so good. I was like, fuck. Why is that in Rebels? Of all shows, it was the one with the worst animation. I was like, no.
I'm just, oh gosh. James, I have not heard the one that you're referring of. Maybe if there's like a video clip, I would love to see that.
Oh, for sure.
There probably is, especially because they usually, for a lot of games, they'll do like, here's all the cutscenes compiled and as like a movie or whatever. They'll just take all the cutscenes and put them as a video.
Yeah, it's like one of the last scenes. So
okay,
and it's the DLC.
I definitely remember. I remember Man of Steel at the end. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just killed a guy.
Yeah, which wasn't that bad. He literally killed Zod with like just evil in the fucking Christopher Reeves movie. Like he literally takes his power away and throws him off a cliff and he dies and he's smiling when he does it and you're like. People are angry about the neck break, but this is fine. What is wrong with people? It's like Batman
Returns. He throws and stamp off a cliff, and we're fine.
That's right. everyone with their stupid excuses about like the modern Ben Affleck Man of Steel killing. I'm like, this is literally absolutely nothing. You guys are just choosing what history to remember.
Right.
But
Come on. Like that's like intro to nerd anything.
I know.
Yeah.
I can choose what we want to remember.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan? What about your? Well, I'll just say actually real fast. The trailers definitely. The first time they showed the animals in the trailers, I'm like, you must be crazy when they die.
Yeah.
Well, and especially like if you've read, I'll be honest, if you've read one high evolutionary book, like you know what this dude is about.
I've
Like
seen him a bit in X-Men stuff, so I there's like a minor amount I saw of him.
the premise of the character is really, to my knowledge, it's unchanged. Of like he's experimenting on things so that he can create perfection of something, and like he sometimes it's a joke, and he has the Animen, and they're all like, you know, this guy's a pig and this guy's a cow, and
I
like,
remember them. Yeah,
like, but in this one, like it's like I get it. Like the animals are CGI, they're not real. And I know like you know, again, like our friend Brandon like brought this up to me. He's like, yeah, this like a version of this shit happens in real life. Like this, you know, animals are also mistreated in real life. And I was like, okay, that also makes it hit. And like so like I agree with James, like that scene hit me like crazy because I'm supposed to. Like James Gunn did a great job of putting that scene together, and Bradley Cooper was great in that scene. You know, being not even being there, just in a booth, creating that emotion out of almost nothing. And I think though my scene for me personally, the scene of the two scenes, I guess, of Drax with the kids and realizing that this movie is not just bringing Rocket all the way around. It's bringing characters like Drax all the way around. Because how are we introduced to Drax in the first movie? He's in
Ronan killed my family.
He's in the kiln because his family is dead. And Drax has been this joke, this buffoon, you know, for so long. And Nebula is so annoyed with him. And Mantis is the only one that knows fully what he is feeling and what he is thinking.
That was one of my favorite scenes in 2, when she's like sitting with Drax and she uses her empathy powers to feel it, and it's like he's keeping all of this inside, and it's like literally she cannot, it overwhelms her immediately, and like he's just carrying that all the time.
James, that is my favorite scene from Guardians 2, because his emotion comes out on Mantis's face. And
that's
notice like Mantis and Drax always have this like brotherly, sisterly, you know, kind of bantering relationship.
Yeah, they go on that like Christmas adventure together.
Yeah, like it's, I mean, here's the thing. That side of their relationship I find very entertaining. The heart behind their relationship is even more impactful. And I love that at the end, Drax got his version of a happily ever after.
Yeah.
He got to have back a small bit of what he lost. And he gets to pour his energy as a father into all these kids that were mistreated and taken advantage of. He is fulfilled in that moment. He gets what he needs and the kids get what they need. And I was like, as dad, husband, like I can relate with that. I can get that. And at the end, that was the part that I teared up at. My wife was sitting next to me like, 4 animals have just died. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not an animal. Like I'm a dad. Like, so I get it. Like, that was my favorite part. My most emotional moment was seeing Drax be made whole again. I loved Dave Bautista in all of those scenes. I loved it so much.
Okay. I did love that line that Nebula had where he's like, I saw the real you today. Like, you weren't born to be a destroyer, you were born to be a father.
Yeah.
It's
like, so good.
Yeah.
I think for me, so I agree with Ryan where I was like, oh, the animals, but I was also like expecting it. So I was like, yeah, this one is about as what I expected, and I was like, fine, pretty much for the most part. I was like, yeah, I'm all right. And for me, completely different, but it was actually when Peter sees his grandfather again.
Oh,
that
was pretty good. Just like he immediately recognizes him and he's like, Peter, and gets up.
I've started to realize, like, I forget there was a Japanese film I watched, live action film, just because I realized when I say Japanese, you're just gonna assume anime half the time. But I've noticed that some stuff, for some reason, that always gets me is like a weird, like, it's always like a father-son thing if it's like super emotional. And I'm just like, damn. And like recently, James, you already know it, Ryan, you don't, but like a couple months ago, my grandfather passed away myself. So like seeing that, I was just like, God damn, like I was like, oh, I feel that. All right. So that was definitely my most emotional moment. It's basically going to be the most human thing that you're going to see. Like if you see something completely
Absolutely.
grounded human, that'll get me more than the space aliens or space animals type things, for sure. I could say though I didn't cry once during this movie because I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it, but that still was for sure the most emotional scene.
You're so tough, Kamran. You're so tough.
Oh
You're
man,
tougher than
yeah,
we are.
yeah, no, you know.
Oh, extra testosterone going.
I
into
used all my tears when
real
Ash
hot.
turned to gold in the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Take that.
Oh man, the first Pokemon movie, as a 10-year-old, completely sobbing in the theater.
Oh yeah, I just
Oh, yeah.
They're
it
not gonna
destroyed
kill
me.
Pikachu, are they?
Yeah, no. There was some other movies I probably cried about recently, but I can't remember which ones they were. I'm like, I've taken in so many movies recently that I can't remember anymore because I was watching like all these screener copies I've had. So my intake is like demolished my brain of just like everything I've seen, and I'm like, overload.
What people need to know is that Kamran has become an emotionless cinephile.
Yes.
Will not spare tears on any
You'll
of these
be
movies.
hearing from me on Reddit. I'm just
I can't
Yes, I
stand the
have daddy
moisture.
issues.
Yeah. Did this movie do good?
What did you mean by that? I'm curious.
So in the world where now we've gotten like 40 Marvel movies and we're getting kind of fatigued and everything else, and James Gunn even says, like, I don't think people are tired of superhero movies. I think they're just tired of getting the same formula over and over and over, which can be prescribed to, I would say, many of the MCU movies. So for me, like watching Guardians 3, I'm like, is this gonna be more of the same? Or is it gonna be like Guardians 2, where I thought I've said it before, like the Guardians movies for me are polar opposites, where the first one is easily my top 3 Marvel movies for the MCU, whereas Guardians 2 is easily my top 3 of the worst movies of the MCU. And some people are like, what the hell's wrong with you? Other people are like, oh, I get it. And I was like, yeah, it's just like a mess. But I was worried about 3 a little bit because I'm like, oh, I didn't like 2, but at the same time with James Gunn, I'm like, I love Slither. I liked Super, and I like Guardians 1, and I really enjoy the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm still shocked how much I like that movie.
I'm like, so far, really, Guardians 2 is the only movie of his I've never liked compared to everything else. So I was like, is 3 going to be good? But at the same time, he's still running with the Disney filters compared to like what he was able to get away with in Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, where Warner Brothers just said, you know what? Show whatever you'd like to show. Like you can be unfiltered.
Disney did let him have one F-bomb in this movie.
You finally got after all the Ant-Man holy shits, they said we're ready to evolve.
That was so funny. He's like, well, now what do I do? Get in the fucking car.
Yeah, that was actually well timed. But that's what I'm saying. Like, was this a good movie of like compared to like other MCU stuff? Like, did this stand out? Was this like a good film?
Yeah, for me it did, but I think it's mostly just because they actually got to some emotional highs and stuff. Like we were talking about, just talking about Ant-Man Quantumania, and just like as much as I enjoyed that movie, it didn't really get me to any extremes of emotions for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But for this one, I'm just like, it literally got me to tears, and it also got me like laughing at different parts. So like any movie that can actually get me to experience genuine emotion like consistently and not just like one single scene, I consider that a success. So yeah. I enjoyed this movie a lot. Like you, I think Guardians 1 is one of my favorite MCU movies. I liked the second one a lot more than you did, but I still like it. My problem with it is just it felt a little like jumbled. Yeah. Like the scene pacing was a little weird, and it just felt like stuff is kind of just randomly happening to the Guardians instead of them choosing like, okay, we need to do this. Here's how we do it. now we're here, we got to do it. Versus this movie where they were very clear the whole time, like, okay, Rocket's hurt, he has a kill switch, we need to find the kill switch, this is where we find it, now we're going. And it was very, like, it made sense what was happening the whole time. And just like all the flashbacks to Rocket's past, I liked, because I like origin stories. That's why I like Iron Man 1 so much, because I really liked like seeing him become Iron Man Mark II or whatever. But no, I guess long story short, I thought this was a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. This movie does a few things. James hit on the emotional notes, so I won't retread that. I think this movie starts with a very basic premise. And then what happens is, because we know how these kind of like space adventures with this cast and crew is supposed to go, we slowly just add things to it. And then when we get to the end, like the Guardians, outside of Rocket, the Guardians don't have a beef against the High Evolutionary. But because the High Evolutionary is such an irredeemable dickhead, we are rooting for our guys to beat the bad guy. Like I said this to some other friends who were talking about this, and they're like, High Evolutionary, like he's I'm like, we're not supposed to like him.
He shot the otter.
He's a villain.
Like it was super satisfying when all the Guardians came together and just beat the shit out of him at the end.
We're I gave these comparisons. We're not supposed to sympathize with him like we did Killmonger. We're not supposed to understand his methodology like Thanos. We're not supposed to fangirl over him like Loki. We're supposed to hate him.
Yeah.
And James Gunn and the actors involved, they create this movie where we get to the point where we want the bad guy to be defeated no matter what. And like there was only one part of this movie that I did not like. And I had a visceral like, ugh, no thanks, I'm good response to. And it was when Peter straight up kills the recorder. Like
that was weird.
I didn't like that scene at all. And it was more because I wanted Peter Quill to be the hero. I didn't want him to just straight up cold blood murder a guy. And that was the only scene where I was like, maybe not. The rest of the movie, I was with the movie on all the highs, all the lows. It had me the entire time. I did not, now because we live in 2023 and our phones are like, every 30 seconds we can be like looking at it. I didn't even think about looking away from the screen for the entire length of the movie. That is when I can tell, kind of like what James was saying, like if they take me on an emotional ride multiple times during the movie, like that to you is like, okay, that's a good movie experience. For me, it's like if I don't think of anything outside of that theater for that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, that is a win. That is a bona fide win.
Sure.
And it's not because like, I can't be bothered with things outside of the movie, but like if you don't let me get out of the story at any points, if you don't have moments where like snooze, turn off that, like I can tag back in a minute or two, because that's when the important stuff's going to happen. I loved that the movie didn't let you go. And in my opinion, top 5 Marvel movie.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Guardians 1 is also in the top 5.
Yeah.
So, but again, Guardians is another. I agree with James. Like I enjoyed Guardians 2 a lot more than what Cameron is saying, I guess. But like I said, simpleton. I enjoy all these movies because I love these characters so much, and the characters are really the heart of these movies.
Yeah.
You can throw all the big explosions and spaceships and monsters at it. It comes down to the characters, and the characters are awesome. So
I mean, yeah, it's very much like, I mean, you look at the intro for 2, where it's little Groot running around and everyone in the background just doing all this shit, and it's like it doesn't matter. Just like, I mean, look at the ride at Disneyland or California Adventure where they replaced the Hollywood Tower of Terror with it, and it's so short attention span where you see them fight for a second, and then you drop, and then you go back up, and they fight for a second, and then you drop, and they go, "Thanks for being here," and I'm like, "What the fuck did just happen?" I don't even What? I don't have like ADHD. Why do you think my attention span is so short that I went, I'm like, this is stupid. You guys are stupid. I didn't like this at all. But they go, oh, but look, we're on the screen. Bye. And it's a Mantis is there. And Mantis wasn't even on the screen the other 2 times. She just is there waving this time. It's a whole thing.
Weird.
It's just, yeah, it's not good.
I did like that we got to see Mantis fight in this movie.
Yes, that was good.
Yeah.
Finally.
That was so funny. She's just like, you're a kitty cat. No.
And Palm Clemente is so good. Like
the stupid you just want to dance, and he's
yeah.
and like all this stuff is happening where the dude is shooting he's like,
it's
really
just like
angry,
unbridled rage. It just like has so much shooting,
killing everyone, and he's just still in front of him dancing. So
I once heard a critique of Mantis, it being like, oh well, like she changes emotions so quickly. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of her thing.
Yeah.
She feels the emotions of other people, like Doi.
An empath,
like,
yeah.
Why would she not be as erratic and crazy as she is?
Yeah. It's like that scene where she's like trying to make Drax feel better, but she keeps calling him stupid. And she's just like, this doesn't make me feel any better. And she's just like, forget.
Yeah. And he's like,
oh, man.
Yeah, so for me, just to put context into it, like I loved Guardians 1. The reason Guardians 1 is like my probably like number 3 movie is because they do such a good job balance. Like it's still unknown, so there's a lot of comedy in it, but it knows when to be funny, when to be just a normal film where it's like, oh, there's music playing and they're going into prison and he sees Rocket's back and he's like, what happened there? And they kind of keep things very tame to the point where like, yeah, there's a stupid dance off at the end and it's funny. And then it just kind of somehow transitions perfectly. I don't know how that was so close together where it shouldn't have worked, but it did, where it goes from that to like, take my hand, Peter, to
that shit
the most emotional MCU scene at that time of those phases at that point. And you're like, they did such a good job with it. And then you get to Guardians 2 where it feels like a bastardization of the first one. And it's just like, hey, what if we took out all the good transitions and just kind of made it ruthlessly funny, but not necessarily good? And a lot of it's also just mean comedy that doesn't work as well. And then you get to like a serious fight where it's like the equivalent of like, oh my God, you killed my mom. What do you feel like right now? You just killed your mom. I feel like Pac-Man right now. And I'm like, this is by far one of the dumbest things, not to mention when they go really fast and the visual effects of them like distorting was awful. I thought it was awful. So for me, it felt like they took what they thought was good in the first one when that was only part of it and just said, make that the entire second one. And I do get there's going to be a lot of like, well, yeah, this is the new family and stuff, and they're still getting used to each other, but here's all this stuff. And it's like, that doesn't make it good. And like I said before, it's like you find out more about Rocket in the third one, and it makes it make a little more sense in the second one. But the fact that then you have to have another movie after to make that work doesn't work. It should have been, if you want something for that to work in that movie, it has to be in that movie. Just like, oh, Mandalorian and all these other Star Wars shows are sort of making the sequel trilogy make a little bit more sense. Well, yeah, they have to, because they were such a shit show that you need to do that so you can potentially salvage them. It doesn't make those movies better. They still suck. It's that kind of thing for me. So when 3 comes along, you get that return to balance, but also you get that post-Suicide Squad Disney going, we're sorry, come back and do this again. We don't care about your tweets that were actually hella fucking aged anyway. And they give him a little bit more leeway, and he can do what he wants to do to finish it off. And because it's a finish, and he's looking at it probably as like, if this is the end, I have to really make sure this works really well. And he brings back all the emotion more than you'd got in the first one, which is really good, because in the first one it's mainly Chris Pratt's character, it's mainly Star-Lord, but in 3 he does a really good job of balancing everyone's closure, whether it is Peter learning like, I have to let go of the only thing that kind of became stable in my life after losing everything else. And then having to say goodbye to that too, and kind of figuring that out, to Gamora being like, I'm not the same person, literally. And they're like, well, she's not dead. And it's like, yeah, she was. They did technically kill her off. This is an alternate Gamora. And, everyone else from, Rocket's self-explanatory, Drax being a dad, Nebula learning Nebius was a little bit like it was harder for her, but like kind of learning to become a leader, I guess you would say. But also they were playing around with like a Star-Lord Nebula thing that they didn't actually go with, and it was like actually just comedy. And you're like, oh, okay. I know how black your eyes were. My father fucking tortured me.
Oh, they're good looking eyes.
Yeah. So you had good taste. But like, even I enjoy because like I hated Groot in the second one. It was just like a whole. It just felt like you were watching money run around. Going, don't you like the merchandise running around that you're gonna go buy in the store?
Oh, you mean like the cute little puppy thing?
Yeah, it's basically they turned Groot into a damn porg. But in 3, like I really did enjoy they returned to the Guardians 1 voice of Groot. Like it was the full Vin Diesel, like, I am Groot. And you're like, oh, thank you. Okay, that sounds good. Like I can enjoy that again.
I did like the full kaiju scene.
Yeah, that
was hilarious.
And for those that didn't, yes, no, you're not supposed to do that, Groot.
And then, like, he keeps growing too. So like by the end of the post-credit scene, he's like fucking massive.
Yeah, but for those that didn't realize, like at one point he says, "I love you guys," and that's not supposed to be like, oh, he finally talked like them. This is what they hear from him. It's the perspective of what they hear from Groot when he talks, when he just says, "I am Groot." He still is just saying, "I am Groot," but that's them hearing what normally he might say. Yeah, whereas Gamora the whole time is like, he just said like, "I am Groot." Why
you're just making shit up, right?
Yeah, you're making. Yeah, you're like, I don't understand it. And by the end, she sort of does, and then they give you that perspective at the end there. But like I said, I think the third one had a very good balance of comedy, drama, seriousness, emotion, and they really cleaned it up compared to, like I said, the second one. And it really felt like a worthy sequel of the first film to really end everything on. But that was my thought. I think it wasn't perfect. The first one I loved so much because I didn't have any complaints about it. This one I still had a couple complaints with. Not the same one as you did. I actually was just like, yeah, fucking kill him. I love blood. Like,
it was heroic, isn't it?
No, it was just like, it was just ruthless. I was like, oh, this is completely ruthless.
Like, I didn't think Peter was gonna be serious, and he was like, "You'll kill us both." No, just you.
And I was like,
oh,
well,
he did kill him.
Oh, you need to break his fall. That makes sense.
Yeah, like, hey, what if Peter Quill, Star-Lord, you know, the quippy, dancy guy, what if he turned into John Wick for like 2 minutes?
He just got pit after seeing it. I get it a little bit just for the fact that it's like, oh, it was a trap that we all knew about, but also the fact that it's like showing
this trap is a face off.
This is the guy that screwed with Rocket the whole time. This is the guy that made him what he is and like did all this stuff to him. And here's his lackey that took the code away. And then the lackey gets very like, you're all gonna die. Like he gets very full of himself and stuff to the point where it's like detrimental. Like you've now emotionally broken Star-Lord. He's emotionally compromised. You've emotionally compromised this man now. So he's just like filled with hate where he's like, Groot, kill them all. Like, I'm done with this. Like, let's just, we're done being good. Like, we're not here to be good. We're here to get this done. We're going to finish this job.
Is the Guardians trilogy and then his involvement in Infinity War, you know, with the snap. I feel like Kamran just said like something that we could just define Star-Lord as, like, he's an emotionally compromised character.
Oh, the entire time. Yeah. It was so stupid in Infinity War what he does. Yeah, I was literally like,
Cameron, they call back to that in this movie, and it was so good.
He said it wrong. He's like, I almost got everyone killed. It's like, no, you did. Technically,
yeah.
You did. You're just lucky they had dust insurance.
Well, they fixed it though, so fine. That counts as almost.
Yeah, if they didn't have dust insurance, you'd be in big trouble, mister.
So, James, what I've been hearing over the last hour is that you and I need to do a live commentary of Guardians 2 and just have Kamran in the background. Be
my god, yes.
Still fucking sucks.
Just like do like Clockwork Orange, just like strap him to the chair and give him his eyes open.
No. Look, it's your favorite part. They're going light speed. No, I don't want to watch this.
I was wrong. So terribly wrong. This movie's good. Let me stop.
This is the Star Wars equivalent of Leia flying through space. Stop it.
Oh god. I forget about that, and then every time you remind me, I'm just like, no.
I know. Next up, just
brain hurt now.
So this was, I thought, the main flaw of this movie was the unnecessary or also kind of weird fitting in of Adam Warlock into this. just because you have this
Yeah.
guy that they tease as a cocoon in the first movie. You have him hyped up at the end of the second movie, and then he shows up as like a joke more or less in the third movie. And it's not that I like Will Poulter's performance as him was entertaining. I had a good time with it, but it just felt like out of place the whole time, where it wasn't like he was done bad. It's just they were kind of like looking around like, where do we put him here? Like, we're having trouble fitting him into this movie. Was
Yeah, like
for
we
me
teased
the
this guy
issue.
already, and this is the last one. We got to put him in somewhere.
Especially considering like if I never really I skimmed it a bit for Infinity Gauntlet, but like isn't he like a key piece of Infinity Gauntlet? If
Yeah,
I
he's
remember.
usually like the protector of the Soul Stone, I think.
He's
Yeah.
a massive part of that.
Yeah. So it I
Really,
don't
the
know.
travesty with Warlock is that he wasn't involved in the Infinity Saga at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And he's just
I hear
kind of comedy
people, like,
relief in this.
I hear
And the
people
catalyst for Rocket.
like, oh, they freaking ruined Warlock in this movie. It's like, no, they didn't do Warlock at the right time to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
like in this movie, you get like, it's like, yeah, like let's fit a moderately popular character. And it, like, okay, this is my little soapbox for a second. People that get really upset about B, C level characters not being done well in movies, this character is not like, it's not like they messed up Spider-Man, guys. It's not like they
Yeah.
messed up the Hulk. Like it, like let's tone it down a fucking tad. Like it's Adam
How
Warlock.
main is he? Like that's what I don't know. Like because I only knew he was in Infinity Gauntlet. I don't know his like level in the
So
comics.
for a while, like the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity War, Infinity Crusade, and then the past that, the Infinity Watch stuff. So like 80s, 90s.
Like an Apple Watch.
Yeah. He's important. Yes, he's important. This is gonna be my reading recommendation for Adam Warlock is anything Jim Starlin wrote with Adam. Anything.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. It's great. It's great space soap opera stuff. It's fantastic. Anything with him and the Magus, anything with the Church of Universal Truth, anything with him versus Thanos. Like, go read that stuff. You were never going to get that.
So I recently played the Guardians of the Galaxy game that I think Square Enix made, or someone, and that had Adam Warlock and Magus and the Church of Universal Truth in it. And I really, really liked that game. And like they kind of in that game also play Adam Warlock as sort of a funny character, but not like he's constantly making jokes and he's just like an idiot. It's just like he speaks in rhymes and stuff. And he's like it seems like, yeah, it's like he's trying to sound like noble and like, you know, higher class and stuff, but he just like sounds weird. And like the Guardians are like, how do you talk like that? Why are you putting so much effort into how you're speaking? And it's just like, it's still funny, but it's not like, mother, I want to keep this pet. It's like, so I thought Adam Warlock in this was funny in the movie, and it was interesting to me that in the two things that I've seen him in, he's been like sort of a joke character, but he was more of a joke in this one than he was in the Guardians game, especially when like the Mega stuff starts happening and you're just like, oh, this shit's dangerous. And like, he's a very interesting, complicated character, it seems, from like the little bit I've known.
You're right.
In the comics, is he a hero, villain, or just kind of like a neutral guy?
So he starts out as this experiment. These scientists are trying to create the ideal person, the perfect person. Kind of like what Aisha says at the end of Guardians 2, where we get that little hint that Adam is coming. But he starts off squaring off with, the Fantastic Four and Thor. Like his first interaction with Thor is actually hilarious. He steals Sif because he wants a girlfriend. That's it. That's just it. And
that's
Thor,
funny.
Like that's it. So it's like some of his first few adventures, they're ridiculous. They're silly. But But he's that very stoic, like I have just been like a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing. He's like, what should I go and do? I think I'll have a girlfriend. Girlfriends seem good. Like it's more
if
that.
they made Frankenstein's monster a Knight of Camelot or something.
I mean, it's silly, but it's not intended to be silly.
Okay.
This is like when I was like I was like, oh, James Gunn is finally gonna go full Adam Warlock. I'm like, people are not gonna get whatever they're expecting, they're not gonna get it. Because reminder, everybody, James Gunn doesn't care about all your childhood memories of these characters. And he doesn't care about, there's 80, 50, whatever years of history with this character. He's gonna do what he feels is best for his movie. And if this is how he felt Warlock was best used, that's what was going to happen. Like, it's funny how like different Gunn properties, it's like, oh, well, it was okay in Suicide Squad, but don't do it in Guardians because that would be a betrayal of the character. But by all means, do whatever you want with Peacemaker and do all that kind of silliness. I don't understand where like people draw the line with James Gunn stuff, just keeping it within his kind of movie. It's like, these characters were going to make quips and jokes and all this kind of stuff. They were going to do that. So why are we surprised? Maybe it's not the most Warlocky Warlock we could have gotten, but James Gunn was still directing and writing.
Yeah.
So that's the part about the complaint that I don't understand is that for Rocket and Groot and Peter Quill and Gamora and all that, for all of them, it's okay. Newsflash, those characters don't make a lot of quips like all the time.
Yeah.
Does. But like for Warlock though, with Warlock, we're pissed. It's like, let's calm down. Like it's still a comic book movie. Okay. That's my second soapbox thing, and that's the last of my soapbox things.
So I'm more like I'm on the point then about like he feels fine. It's just his placement, really.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
We weren't going to get a serious cosmic savior Adam Warlock. It wasn't going to happen. Like I agree with James. Like if this was like Magus, Church of Universal Truth, like he's fighting to save Counter Earth from all this, like that would have also been a really good movie. But it was never going to happen. Like it wasn't. Right. So I went in with really low expectations of Warlock. I liked the design of Warlock. I liked Will Poulter. Like I'm a Will.
He was fun. He was just fun. Like, yeah. It was just. What did she say? She's like, give him a taste of what you can do.
Yeah, show him we mean business.
And he just like business, and he just kills him. And she's like, "That's not what I meant.
That's not what you have meant."
He's like, "What's the guy?" But I mean, it was fine. It was fine. It did. I will go rewatch this movie and I will enjoy it. Like, it's not I enjoy watching this. Oh, well, they ruined this moderately popular character.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
And then we already more or less talked about the High Evolutionary, I believe, right? Do we have anything else to say about him?
I will say he's a top 5 Marvel villain to me.
In comics or in the movies?
Well, in the movies, yes.
Okay.
I loved how villainous he was.
His straight up thing was just like the whole he's very petty for the fact that like, oh, you know something more than I do and I created you. Like that's the it's the really opposite thing of what a parent would be. Just like your parent wants you to surpass you. This dude's like, you've literally done everything I never wanted you to do.
Yeah, like I thought that was an interesting scene where he's just like he's trying to create the perfect being, which you would think would surpass him if he's not already perfect. So when one of his creations does something that he couldn't do, or at least not yet, like something got to a solution before he did, he was jealous.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting that like broke him a little bit. And he's just like, he couldn't stand that one of his own creations is better than him, which you would think is why he's even trying to do it in the first place, is to make something better.
Yeah, for his foreign army.
It legitimately offended his god complex.
Yeah,
his creation would even come close to surpassing him. Like, and it's just James, I hadn't even thought about that like he's building this perfect society by building these perfect people, and then he's almost taken off guard that they're better than him at some things. And like I think what the performance and the writing around this character did was it elevated an okay comic book villain
Yeah.
into a villain where I'm like, ooh, like that guy, like that guy means business. Like I thought the same thing about Killmonger. Like, to be honest, you know, again, it's one of those things like, oh, Killmonger is such a great villain. I'm like, not really. Like in comics before that movie, not really. Like he's okay, he's fine. But like Michael B. Jordan acts the shit out of Killmonger.
Yeah,
I'm
to
like,
the point where it was actually like, hey, maybe you should have just made him Black Panther in the second one. Actually, you could have done a whole redemption thing, been like, yeah, he didn't die, he just was frozen like Winter Soldier was, and then just did something like that. But
I love that when the MCU is able to do that. You know, in my opinion, like they take an okay villain and they make them really great.
yeah,
I thought they did that with the High Evolutionary in this.
I think number one for me is still Obadiah Stane or Obadiah.
Really?
Tony Stark built that, and okay, yeah, he's best line. Who does better line?
Box of scraps.
I do love just the sound of like Tony.
So
do you
good.
want a non-consensual back rub?
How are you gonna beat Jeff Bridges? You can't beat Jeff Bridges. It's impossible. Like it's too good.
Yeah, it's crazy because there's times where I'll watch that movie and I'm like, oh, this is the Big Lebowski doing this.
Yeah.
I think the second best villain is probably just like, what is my birth? I want my birth. And it's like, no, Whiplash, you can't have your birth. I want my birth. Give me birth. It's great. You lose, Tony Stark. You lose.
It's so weird that they were like, yo, let's smash together Whiplash and the Crimson Dynamo.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the third villain was probably the bird. The cockatoo he had. For sure. But otherwise, the relationship. Oh, I want to say really fast when the evolutionary, I didn't realize before Rocket scratches up his face, they had like the thing on the side where it like hits the face mask. So when they're like, who is he really under there? When the Scooby-Doo gang finally solve it, I was straight up expecting the freaking Men in Black tiny alien in the body where it's just the little dude controlling the face, and he's like,
he was a raccoon the whole time,
and then just like dies or something. And it wasn't, and I looked and I'm like, oh, that's what that. Oh, I'm dumb. All right, yeah.
I'm dumb.
And I was like, I was really expecting a tiny alien.
Don't you love that when you're like, I think I've outsmarted these writers, and then there's like, you haven't outsmarted us. We actually did think this through.
He's right behind me, isn't he? No, I'm right in front of you the whole time, you idiot. Oh my god.
It's like, oh, what's under the mask? That's not a mask. That's my face. I now have no skin.
It's just a guy's face.
Rocky, you took my skin. Now I had to get new skin.
Yeah, he just like
that skin too.
He just grew himself a new face and just stapled it on like the Joker.
Yeah, he really.
It's funny how like we get the peeling off the face in this one, and it's like, oh, gross. But like when we got it in Captain America: First Avenger, it was like Hugo Weaving pulls off his Hugo Weaving face, and it's like perfectly smooth red skull.
Delicious. He sanded it to a T. It's great. I guess since we've already talked about it mostly, but any other relationships from the movie you guys felt, not like romantic, but just relationships between characters in general?
I touched on it for a second. I liked that, like, for most of the movie, Nebula was like, Drax, you're a fucking moron. Like, why are you even here? You're not helping. And then, like, she finally sees, like, the true him when he's, like, dealing with the kids. And it's just like, I like that she finally was like, oh, I see that you have more value than just being a strong dude who's just dumb.
Yeah.
Like, and then same for Mantis, where she's just like, I like, well, it's not exactly a relationship thing, but like at the end of the movie where she's like, you know, I've spent my whole life just doing what other people wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And I need to find something I need to figure out myself.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I like that that's like kind of a part of her relationship with everyone is like, I know what I'm like with everyone. I need to know what I'm like alone, which I liked.
The you know, just to piggyback off that, like what's great about the way this movie ends is we don't get a death and then everyone's like, I guess the team's done. Like we don't get that. We get a scene where everybody expresses the way that they want to develop as a person after this. It's like the Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't had for so long had become their identity. And now they're like, who am I? Not what do I add to the Guardians? Who am I beyond the Guardians? And I think that was so great because oftentimes, like, because of the way comics work and how comic characters work, we they can develop a little, but we're going to need you to come back to a familiar place so that we as readers and we know what to do with you. Don't do like develop, yes, but don't develop too much. And in this movie, they're like, no, we're moving on. Like we're moving on from this.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a Guardians team, and I know we're going to talk about the new Guardians lineup, but I love that Mantis and Nebula and Drax and Peter, like they all got to do that, and it was a good catharsis at the end. And when Gamora goes and finds her new family, and I thought
she's
that
a Ravager now.
was really good too. The one relationship I just wanted to hit on was James mentioned Nebula. I love that Nebula in the first half of this movie, she's like a disgruntled babysitter.
Yeah.
And she's just like, oh, I gotta do this shit again. And Karen Gillan is so good. Like
she is.
She's just so good. And she puts so much into this. Like she's playing a cyborg robot, and yet she makes the character feel the most human at times. And at the end, she realizes like she doesn't have to be strong all the time. She can actually ask for help. She doesn't have to be the only one that knows what's really going on, and that she can bear the weight of leadership and responsibility and not just be a lone wolf anymore. I just loved how Nebula interacted with all the characters. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
One of my favorite moments for Nebula was when like Peter is like, she calls Peter to be like, okay, we're on the ship, where are you? And he's like, well, we're not on the ship, why are you on the ship? And then like Rocket chimes in, and it's like the first time she's heard him speak since he was hurt, and she's just like, Rocket, you're okay. And it's just it's that hit me, because it's like just like the relief, and just like, you know, she thought she was going to lose one of her best friends, who like literally
the one that literally improved her. Yeah, literally improved her physically.
And it's like she has grown with him, not just physically but emotionally.
They were the only two that survived that weren't dusted.
Yeah, and like that, I totally forgot about that.
They had 5 years together.
And like she kind of has like a way to empathize with Rocket more than anyone else, because Rocket has also been like carved up and like turned into something other than he originally was, because of all his implants and augments and stuff. And that's literally her whole being, is like she was torn apart by her father and replaced piece by piece, to the point where she probably doesn't even recognize herself anymore, but she is who she is. And so I see why she and Rocket both are like really close at this point.
James, that was so spot on, man.
Thank you.
I didn't even pick up on that. Like, listeners, you're listening to a treasure. That's so good.
Yeah, definitely. I think also the fact that, what would it be, I guess, technically, like 1, 2, 3, 4, if you count like Rocket and Groot together, Peter, Mantis, Gamora, Drax,
Kraglin.
And I guess, yeah, to an extent, Kraglin and
good boy, good girl Cosmos.
That I love that whole thing, the whole movie where Cosmos is like, I know you don't think I'm a bad dog. Tell me I'm not a bad dog.
Yeah. But like there's like
it never stops hurting.
There's 6 different forms of closure that they're able to do so cleanly, like without issue, without error. And I thought that pulling that off, considering it's like, you know, you always have team movies and stuff where you have the ones where it's all these people with solo movies team up and they're more spectacle. They lack a lot of substance, being like the Avengers films, depending on what's going on. Whereas the Guardians starts off as a team film, similar to that of like X-Men and stuff. And that's the whole thing of what it's about. And you have to balance all these characters and make sure they all have their time to shine. And, you know, depending on the movie, kind of like it's easier in the first one because there's only like 5 of them. And then they start growing over time. And even with the crew they like have by the end of 3, they still do it really well, which is very hard to do with that cast size. Like, look at Eternals and how that turned out. It was like 10 people just going all over the place and like, oh my god, it's so crazy, look, he killed himself going to the sun, do you like the poetry?
Man, that was weird.
This one just did it so well, and I was just like, I was impressed. I was very impressed by how well they were able to pull that off. I think too, the fact that, each one didn't have to be together. They're all kind of walking away in the middle, kind of Kevin Feige being like, no, my Guardians are leaving and probably going to the DCU. Shit. It's like, you just, I love that you can make that a comic cover where you've seen that, like the team dissolves and it's like they're all going in different directions.
Yeah.
And in the middle, you just have Kevin Feige, and in the background, James Gunn's just like, look, I have a Superman movie coming out. It's just
Oh my god.
because I love it. Like it's the movie barely came out, and already they're like, they give you like small spoilers, like, you know, Peter Quill is Chris Pratt isn't opposed to returning. And
Yeah,
he
I
also
saw
said
that and I was
he's
like,
not.
what the fuck does that mean? I haven't
And he
seen this
said,
movie
like,
yet.
we'll see if he shows up in DC and stuff. And all the other people, like David Bautista's, like, he says like he's not opposed to going to DC, and you're like seeing all this like transition stuff of just like, yeah, these aren't like the Marvel guys, these are the James Gunn's guys, these are his people. For the fact that you watch the Suicide Squad, and you see like there's like 3 people from the Suicide Squad in Guardians 3. One being Nathan Fillion shows up as like a guard in this one, whereas
I love
he
those
was,
stupid meat suits.
what was his name in Suicide Squad? It was like 3 letters.
Oh, it was TDK, the
TDK.
detachable kid or something.
Yeah. So which apparently he's not
Fucking
dead.
weird.
So he's actually going to come back potentially, which I think is hilarious. But he shows up in that. James Gunn's wife once again shows up in this, and she's like the one that Gamora shoots in the leg, and she's
That
like,
was so funny.
"Ah." It's just like Jesus Christ. So
It's
she
like
shows
everyone
up.
else is stunning people, and she's just like, I'm gonna kneecap you.
And the one people probably didn't realize was Daniela Melchior. I think that's how you say her last name. She's a Portuguese actress.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her
She
until you
plays
pointed her out.
Ratcatcher 2 in the Suicide Squad. She was the orange one that Gamora takes hostage, that Peter's trying to like hit on, but also
I
like,
love
go
that
help
scene
us
where
out.
he's like, he finally gets her to like do something for him, and he turns to Gamora. He's like, "See, I told you she was into me." And then he like just hacks the system. He's like, "Oh no, I was lying. I just needed to get into the system."
But she's in like she's in 2, like, it's funny because in a 2-week span she goes from, oh hey, I'm in Guardians 3, guys, check it out. 2 weeks later, oh hey, I'm in Fast X, guys, go check it out. Like,
Oh, yeah.
she has a lot going on, which I will say, oh my god, next when I come back, I gotta talk Fast X. It's so freaking good. But James, was there, before we do like the rankings and stuff, Ryan ran to the bathroom real fast, but like before we do the rankings, was there anything you wanted to talk about, any lingering stuff, minus like the new Guardians that we see at the end and stuff like that?
This is gonna be completely random, but just like a thing that really I liked in this movie was a single scene. And it's just because I'm a huge fan of like one shots. If you could do a good one shot, it was the scene where the Guardians are all like, okay, we're on the High Evolutionary ship. We need to like get through this hallway. And they open the doors and shit goes crazy. And they just have this insanely cool choreographed fight scene with everyone where you get to see everyone's individual abilities on display. Even like Nebula gets her head like knocked in a way that like breaks her neck, and she just keeps on going because her body
She kept like
fix that shit.
Yeah, her stuff was crazy.
And just like after a while, I was like, they're not cutting, and like maybe there's some clever like movie effect like cuts, because I've seen like on Corridor Digital they've shown like sometimes movies will do one shots, but they'll have like something pass by the camera in such a way that it's like, oh, you can hide a cut. But I guess as an individual shout out to this part of this movie that's not like on your list of things,
yeah,
that one shot hallway fight I thought was really, really cool.
Okay,
Very cool.
Yeah. Ryan, was there anything else you want to say before we go to the rankings?
No, I think I've given you all I have up to this point.
All right. So
and also shout out to that Bat family.
Oh, yo, RIP Bat family that just like gave their car away and then died.
Just like the look of like annoyance and like
the dad
on the dad, where he's just like, "Hey, is that your car?" He's like, like he knows what's gonna happen.
Ryan, how would you rank the 3 Guardians movies?
So this really probably I think we're all going to be somewhat similar with this. 3 and 1 are really hard for me because I treat them kind of like how I treat the Lord of the Rings movies. I love Fellowship now because it's where we began. I love the first Guardians because it's where we began.
Yeah.
And I love I love Return of the King because everything gets tied up and there's closure. And I love number 3 of Guardians because everything ties up and we get closure. So I don't know. It kind of depends on the day, honestly. Do I
How
want
about today then?
I would say today I choose closure.
Okay.
Today I choose closure. I would go with number 3 as my favorite Guardians movie, but like it's razor thin close.
So it's volume 3, volume 1, volume 2.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. How about you, James?
I probably would still rank the first one over 3. So my ranking would probably be like 1, 3, 2.
Okay.
Just because I rewatched Guardians 1 recently-ish, and I love how well they're able to go from like these characters don't even know each other, and like some of them just straight up hate each other towards the beginning, to like by the end of the movie they're working together and become like a good team. It was just like a really surprisingly good movie for like introducing like 5 different characters, all with their very different separate backstories, and they all come together and it works. And it's like high stakes, but they're somehow still able to do funny comedy stuff that works, and it doesn't have that weird tonal whiplash that I was complaining about for Quantumania. And just like, yeah, that like take my hand Peter scene just like still wrecks me when I just think about it. Like, because one of the things that gets me the most is if you ever like in a movie when they do a scene where like someone gets to see someone that they thought they would never see again, or just like getting that closure that you were always
like when they see Darren again in Man 3.
Ugh. Not like that.
Are you sure?
But yeah,
He's an Avenger. He's an Avenger.
So like Guardians 3 had like a lot of really emotional scenes, but nothing that hit quite as high as that one scene.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I have to give it just like a slight edge over 3. But it's weird because 3 might be a better movie overall. It's just, I don't know. I'd have to go rewatch both of them again maybe, but it's easy for me to rank 2 as my third of the 3, just because like it, like we mentioned before, it's a little bit too silly, it's a little bit disjointed, and it's still good. I still enjoy it. I just don't enjoy it as much, I guess.
Okay.
I always forget that Guardians 1 begins with his mom dying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys remember like
my mom died of cancer? Oh my god, aliens!
Yeah, like the trailer for that movie was all like, hey, like some 70s and 80s songs you forgot about. Like it's just, and then the movie starts with, by the way, Peter, your mom is dying. And it's like, whoa, it's crazy.
Like I love the grandpa I haven't seen since that very first scene is at the very last scene.
Yeah. No, I love that, like in Guardians 3, like when everyone's off the ship and Gamora's just rooting through their shit, like Peter still has his backpack with all of the things that he had that he was like abducted with.
Yeah.
Like all these years later, he still makes sure he has that.
Trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think number 1 would be volume 2. I just love to hate it. I'm just kidding. No, so volume 2 at number 3, for sure. I think it's gonna be same as James, number 3 at number 2, just because it was a very good time. I don't think it was perfect. I saw the flaws in it when they were there. Whereas with number 1, it's a lot more. It's smaller in scale, just more focused on just a small amount of people. And for me, felt flawless. Like I said, I couldn't find anything wrong with this movie. Everything just went smoothly as all hell, and just felt. It also comes from such a great time where we didn't have that many Marvel movies yet, so you weren't just kind of like, oh, the whole time. Whereas like now you're like, oxygen, please. Like we finally got like a small. I didn't realize we had this small amount of time where there hasn't been any Disney Plus Marvel stuff. So we just had these 2 movies, and I'm like, oh, that was nice. And it's like, yeah, we got 3 Disney Plus shows coming up, bitch. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Get ready for Echo and the others.
So I definitely think, yeah, it's pretty much 1, 3, 2.
Yeah.
And then finishing off here with the last 2 things, which pretty much are both post-credit scenes. One was the New Guardians, which consisted of Rocket, Groot,
Kraglin, Cosmo, and the girl,
and Adam Warlock.
Yeah, more
All right, I forgot he was there.
Which Ryan, I wanted to ask you, who is the girl? I know she's one of the children
Yeah.
that escaped, but was there anything? Is
Um,
she an existing character?
So I didn't look into the character that much. So this is off the cuff. This could have been, new rock stars could have done an entire video about this, 5 seconds after they saw the movie. So don't send Cameron any hate for the stupid thing I'm about to say. I believe the character is Phil, who is a member of the Guardians in the 2000s. She's kind of a mainstay for a while with the Guardians before they kind of settled into the movie crew.
Oh, before, yeah.
So Philibel's, cool character. I don't know a lot about her, but I believe that's who this character is supposed to be. I could be wrong, but that's my best amateur guess.
Okay. I like the cool little like new team there. It felt more interesting than the new Avengers post Avengers 2 that you get, that you're like, oh, what are we gonna see with them? Oh, you get like half of them, and then Crossbones like commit suicide, and then they fight each other, and you go, oh wait, so what? So we don't get that team. No.
We'll get them for 10 minutes.
You can imagine what it was like with them. Oh, okay. Well, fuck you guys. But yeah, so like I feel like for this one they could make like a cameo short return during like what's the big one? Secret
Wars
and stuff, maybe. Which makes sense. If the other ones are now gone, they could just do like this small amount, which is more, it seems simpler to do, especially with like a lot of them didn't really get much screen time previously or were only in this movie besides Rocket. So you're just like, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, go back into the ADR booths for like 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah, according to Collider, that kid is Phyla-Vell, who in the comics is a descendant of the original Captain Marvel.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But anything else on those guys? Otherwise,
I love the lineup. I think the lineup.
Yeah, lineup. I like the lineup. Yeah.
I like Rocket as the leader. I like that Kraglin's a full-fledged member now, and I love that they've taken Warlock, this grown all-powerful man who is still learning how to exist outside of being just a creation of a creator. Similar to Rocket, similar to a lot of different characters in Marvel. I love that they're taking Adam and Philibel under their wing to bring them along. I think that would be a cool thread to follow. We probably won't get to see it in a feature-length way, which is fine. Like Cameron was saying, like not everybody can get their own movie. Not everybody their own movie, their own show, whatever. I think one thing you hit on, Cameron, that I really loved was, like Guardians, when Guardians 1 came out, it wasn't competing with anything. It wasn't competing with the next project that's coming out next month,
Yeah.
So it was given time to breathe and appreciate it. And I think that's one thing where like this new team, we're probably not going to get to see them in that way. They'll probably be a cameo, or they'll probably show up in a random movie. Like, what movie will they show up in next? I have zero clue.
Yeah.
But whatever.
It'd be interesting if they showed up in Marvels for like a second.
Hey,
maybe, yeah.
That might be a great place to put them, because it's looking like the Marvels is going to be this kind of crazy, like, where are they?
Yeah.
Like, who's jumping where kind of thing. I like the lineup. I think it's a fun team of characters that we already care about, after this movie.
Yeah. All right. And last thing here, I'll let you guys start it off. I'll be right back in like 1 minute. But how do you guys feel about that? I know Chris Pratt said I'm open to returning, but he didn't say he's returning. Of the Star-Lord will return at the end there. But I'll be right back as you guys start that off.
I mean, I guess it'd be the same as like the other Guardians we just talked about, where it's just like, yeah, like his story's kind of done, sort of. So like he doesn't need to come back. But if Peter Quill showed up in a cameo again, I wouldn't be shocked.
I also I wouldn't, since that's right, James, like since his story it's been told, it's done. Like his closure, we got to the point of his closure. I think it's cool, hey, like he shows up to just like do one thing or something, like Pratt does a cameo scene or whatever. Like that would be fun because we already know the character's arc is done.
Yeah.
And I think one comic book thing that I thought was really funny was at the end when they say the legendary Star-Lord will return.
Yeah, I was very confused by that. I was like,
So
Will he?
the legendary part of that is what they add to his like solo titles. So like
Oh,
has done when Star-Lord has had a solo comic, most of the time the masthead will say the legendary Star-Lord.
I didn't know that. That's actually a really cool reference.
And I'm sitting there in the theater with a bunch of, normal people that just want to
Yeah.
see a fun superhero movie. And I am freaking out about that word. And my wife's like, you are embarrassing us. It's like, of course I am, but I know knowledge that they don't know or care about. So
That's funny because like I was so confused when that popped up. But like if I had known that, I would have been freaking out too. Like that's the thing.
That's right. It's the Leo DiCaprio thing of like, that's
exactly.
That's the thing. No,
Yeah.
it's cool. Like wherever he shows up, cool. Like it just like have fun with it because he's at the point where we can have fun with Peter Quill just doing a random one-off thing if we want.
I could even see
a featured character.
I could even see him pop up as like I don't know, maybe Spider-Man in another movie is like needs some space knowledge of something or whatever, and he's just like, well, how are we gonna do this? Like, oh, I know someone, and it's Peter Quill.
That would make sense because they have a history from Infinity War, and
Yeah.
but who knows? Who knows? Kevin Feige knows, but
Grandpa, Spider-Man needs me. I'll see you later.
They can even do like a funny thing where he shows up as Peter and he's just like, who are you? He's like, oh, wait, give me 1 second. He puts a mask on. He's like, oh, Spider-Man.
Oh, Spider-Man.
You were that kid on the ship in space. God, yeah. I could assume what you guys probably were talking about, but I definitely just see him as support for another movie. Nothing more. I think they'd show him sooner than Secret Wars or something, like a big team up. So it would just, I think it's for sure would be something Earth-based, since he's just there. But I think that's everything for Guardians 3. And what I wanted to end on is just looking back, because the transition between like phase 4 and 5 felt almost I didn't even realize, because they're like, oh yeah, Guardians holiday special that we got during like December was the end of phase 4, and then Ant-Man 3 is the start of phase 5. But I wanted to ask just like overall thoughts, not not to go specific or anything, keep it short for the most part, but overall thoughts on phase 4, just as its own thing.
I guess my overall feelings is like it felt like a lot of build up to very little, because it seems like everything revolved around introducing the concept of a multiverse, which maybe I'm crazy, but it never seems like that complicated of a concept to me. It's just, oh yeah, there's potential alternate universes that are similar but different based off of like random chances and shit like that. So it just feels like really weird to be like, okay, we need to explain how multiverse works in WandaVision. We have to explain how it works in Doctor Strange. We have to explain it again in Spider-Man. And it seems like it's all leading up to just making Kang the next villain and Loki. So like several shows and at least one movie to build up this concept, which I feel like was way overkill. So it felt like phase 4, nothing really happened, and it's all leading to phase 5, which is Kang, which is cool, but it just felt like a lot of build up to that was not completely necessary, I guess.
Okay.
I in large part I agree. There's a few movies. It's crazy that the movies I enjoyed the most during this phase were the ones that had nothing to do with multiverse stuff.
Same.
Because like people that listen to Across the Bifrost may know this. Like, I'm not a big multiverse guy. I don't enjoy multiverse stuff because I think nowadays, especially, it's overdone in so many different forms of storytelling and media and comics and movies and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes people, you hit the nail on the head. But it's crazy when Multiverse of Madness came out, it wasn't even the best multiverse movie that came out that month.
Yeah,
Everything Everywhere All at Once came out the same time. It was like,
yeah,
that's how you do a multiverse movie.
Mhm.
So I think the introduction of the multiverse, like James said, it's like, do we need to introduce the same concept 4 different times and then have completely whole movies and shows that have nothing to do with it? Maybe not. Like maybe it would have been cool to have like the multiverse, like say a Nexus event happens at the beginning of phase 4, and that Nexus event kind of is a through line through the, not the main plot point, but like it's a through line through the phase, and then we end the phase with Kang making his, pronouncement of, going after the whole multiverse. That to me would have made sense, because then you make the multiverse a C plot or a B plot through the whole phase, and then you end it with like, okay, now we're gonna like kick it off proper. But there were whole things in this that had nothing to do with the overarching theme, and they were, in my opinion, they were better for not having anything to do with the multiverse.
Yeah.
Which is a weird kind of, I realize I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth on that, but I thought it was a good phase. It reminded me a lot of phase 2, where it was like, where are we going with this? And we didn't have the benefit of an Avengers movie at the end of this one. So, in phase 1, 2, and 3, we ended them pretty much with an Avengers movie. So it was like, okay, we're kind of tying off some loose ends here, but then we're spreading back out to go to the next Avengers movie. And we didn't have that with this. So it felt weird. Definitely some good high points, but it reminded me a lot of phase 2. So
I see. Yeah, for me, it just felt scattered for the most part. Like, when you look at it, only 4 things really out of everything there, because phase 4 is really the start of the Disney Plus shows. So like, you have probably maybe, I guess, the same amount of movies you had in the other phases, but now with the shows added in, it doesn't really, phase 4 is the start, the big start of, hey, you're not going to get any breathing room now. Like, it's pretty much year round for the most part. It's just nonstop. So you're like, oh my God, like I think that's what makes you nostalgic for like the first phase or so, because you're like, oh, you just get one movie a year. And then
it was a big deal.
Yeah, each movie was
Avengers
a big deal.
1 came out, that was like a huge event.
Yeah, whereas phase 4, you're like, I can't breathe. I'm like drowning in Marvel content. And it's fine if they're all really good, but you have a combination of fatigue kind of happening, but also nothing's really hitting. Like, I could say there were only, probably in the entirety of phase 4, everything they had, I think only 2 things I thoroughly enjoyed out of everything. And then others I was just vastly disappointed. I'm like, ones that I was legitimately looking forward to, like Miss Marvel, and I'm like, it just disappointed me the hell out of me. Not the actress or anything, but just like the way they had it was like short. It was a whole thing. The only 2 I actually legitimately enjoyed were Shang-Chi and Werewolf by Night. Were the only 2 things. Everything else I thought was just either hit the mark or was neutral.
Its own little pocket universe that.
Which these are the 2 things that are standalone. That's why they were so good for me. I think that I'm glad that the phase is over, because I'm just exhausted from it. And we at least got 3 months between phase 4 and 5. And now we're 2 movies in, which I wanted to say, like, how you guys feel about phase 5 showing up. Like, anything there you're really looking forward to, or do you have bigger hopes of phase 5 than you did for phase 4?
I gotta hope, just because like I was saying, it felt like phase 4 was all just building up to explaining the multiverse so that we could get to Kang. And now we're here. So hopefully now it starts feeling like you said, Ryan, there's more of a through point at this point, and it starts to make a bit more sense, like where we're going and stuff. So I'm a bit more optimistic. It's just weird because like the first 2 movies, like one is all related to the main thing of like Kang and the multiverse, and then Guardians is not related to that at all. So it's hard to say like where the phase is going after just these 2 movies.
Well, and like, okay, to use Guardians as a example, the first Guardians movie, yes, there's an Infinity Stone involved, but we don't really even realize what's going to happen with those stones until later on.
Yeah.
You know, Thor: The Dark World had nothing to do with the Infinity Stones until we realized the
It's like,
ether.
yeah, by the way, ether was the
Like,
reality stone. Like, was
at
it?
least like in the first few phases, there was a through line of this is where this is going, and like this is a little a nugget here, a little a sprinkle here. But then when it got to the end, it made sense. It made sense. You may not have liked it, but you can't say it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I think you know we did need a phase where people were dealing with the trauma of Endgame. We
Yeah.
did. We needed shows and movies that didn't just be like, oh, back to my superhero shit. Like,
Yeah, we
Which
got
I
like
feel
a
like they
little bit of that in
Yeah.
the Captain America and the Winter Soldier show, but it was like
a little bit
I
too in
didn't.
WandaVision as well, and
Yeah,
but I just
didn't
feel
think
like
it
they didn't
worked
really
well.
they weren't they were very shallow with it at the same time. Like they didn't fully commit to it when they could have gone more into like that whole thing. Where I think if they I know it's stupid, maybe it's stupid or not related, but if they did a full on like show that was similar to that of like when you see Captain America doing like the AA type meeting for like people that survived the blip. If they did something like a whole show, it had maybe has some of the heroes in it, but it was more. It's like I don't know if you ever read it, Ryan. Heroes in Crisis from DC.
no,
It was very much like, oh, what happens to heroes when they're like traumatized or like meant like having all this stress and stuff, and they're like, oh, there's like a secret place that doesn't reveal anything about anything anyone's doing. And what ends up happening there is like a bunch of characters actually get murdered, and it's revealed it's like Wally West does it by accident. Um, and like everyone's there from like, oh, Roy Harper dies, Poison Ivy dies, and some others die. They actually permakill a bunch of the heroes that maybe you haven't seen in a bit, but they even go back to like other traumas from comics that were like pre-Flashpoint, and you're just like, holy like the amount of stuff, and they're just like, yeah, we're gonna show also the interviews of people dealing with the trauma of like, oh, talk about what you want to talk about, and you know, they go through all of it. But I think they could have done something like that for Phase 4, where it was people dealing with it, including heroes, but also normal people, and they could have really like grounded it in that sense. They could have, I think, done more if they included like the Flag Smasher type dudes in that, because it would have been a good combination of stuff of just like we're really just focused on the blip. But yeah, that's just my thought.
You could have done like Kurt Busiek's The Marvels kind of version where it's a floor level view, street level view of the Marvel universe. And you get to see kind of the outworkings of all these crazy events that happen all the time, and you know what it looks like Kamran said, like what it looks like to unpack all that stuff. You live in a world where gods are literally flying around smashing shit together all the time. That's got to affect you on some level. So
Yeah.
but I'm hopeful for Phase 5. I can honestly say I'm at the point where like I don't feel the need to keep up with every single moment of, you know, what's happening, and you know, like what Feige said this about this, and James Gunn said this about this, and it's like I don't care anymore. I will.
Yeah, I stopped. The news pretty much have kind of. We used to talk about Marvel news on here all the time, and now we pretty much
It was
just
too
cut
much.
it
It was
off.
constant. It was
Just
like every
we cut
episode.
It off. We cut off completely all of it.
Half of it's not even important.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's that you know, adding a Marvel hashtag on the end of something because hey, it's slightly Marvel related, so you know, maybe that gives it a bump. I'm like, I just want to go see a movie. Like I just want to go see a movie.
Yeah.
That's all at this point.
Whereas we have what, 4 more this year? We have Secret Invasion, then I guess Marvel's, followed by did they say what was for? Was it Loki or Echo first?
Loki starts in the beginning of October,
And then Echo's in November.
Echo is released all at once in November.
Okay, yeah. So we basically have those 4 things going on, and I think Secret Invasion is June.
Secret Invasion is coming up real quick.
Yeah. So, and I'm like at that point, like I said, like I'm not really hyped about anything anymore either. Like I'm just like, yeah, I'll check it out when it comes out. I think because I've started to wane more. Like I missed Ant-Man 3 in theaters. I haven't missed a Marvel movie in theaters since, like I said, Thor 2. She-Hulk, I kind of waited for more of it to come out as I started watching it. I wasn't like, people were spoiling it a bit and I didn't even care. I was like, oh, okay. And then they show me like, oh, look at Thor's son's haircut. And I'm like, that's gonna be interesting to watch, I'm sure. I've gotten to that point, yeah, where I know Secret Invasion is maybe the only one I could be interested in, but it depends on how it works, because it's like, oh, we're going off of the tone of Winter Soldier. And I'm like, okay, but for some reason I'm not like, I hear Winter Soldier and I'm just like, there's no excitement building up, and I'm like, I guess I'll wait and see, and then if it feels like it, then maybe I'll get excited. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just kind of with everything here. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it's like these projects, from Netflix, like not a lot of them feel special at this point.
Yeah,
because it's like we know we're going to get 1 billion of them regardless.
Yeah, and the only two I think were like Blade and Daredevil, and then Blade, everyone was like, all these issues, director left, all this stuff, and it went. Mahershala Ali's like, yeah, there's like 2 fight scenes, and I was like, okay, they somehow Blade was the only that was like, you can't screw up Blade. That's literally the hardest one to screw up. It's a guy fighting vampires. How can you make it not good? And it's like, oh, did life actually find a way? Weird. And then Daredevil.
Yeah, I was like most excited for Blade, and it's just like everything I keep hearing is like it's just getting farther and farther away because shit just keeps going wrong.
Yeah, Daredevil though hopefully should be good.
He was so good.
Yeah,
yeah, that was like the first thing, and we were all like, "That's perfect! Oh my god!"
Yeah, so hopefully Daredevil will be good, because it's like everyone was worried, like, oh god, are we gonna get like PG Daredevil and all this stuff? But now we're seeing a little bit.
When are we getting Born Again?
I think it's still Phase 4. Like, I'm pretty sure Phase 4 is like, besides the ones I've said, like, I think there's also like Daredevil, Ironheart, Agatha, Captain America 4, Thunderbolts. I think that's Phase 4.
Oh yeah, Armor Wars. I forgot about that.
No, I didn't even say that one. I think that's Phase 6. I think it got delayed.
So there's Armor Wars and then also an Ironheart thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll slap Iron Man adjacent stuff on anything.
They're getting the last, your canteen of Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. There's just like this much left, and you're like, what's in it? Oh my god, does it still taste good? It's Ironheart and Armor Wars. Oh god, the water's warm. Oh fuck. That's all I got left. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, I think we've covered everything. Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find you?
So when I'm trying to hide away from the internets, you can't find me. This last week I've been kind of MIA, because you never have time, guys, where you're like, I want to get away from social media stuff. Oh yeah, and like, oh, I just go MIA. Well, when you want to find me, I'm at Mighty Thor Podcast. We throw up our new episodes and we tell you what's coming up on the show. We've got a few cool series coming up, going this year. We were graced with the news that there's going to be a new Thor comic book series launching in August that a friend of ours is actually going to be drawing, which is fantastic. So there's a lot of cool Thor news coming out for this upcoming year. We got the Loki series we're going to cover in October. You can check us out at Mighty Thor Podcast on social media, Instagram, and then check us out on iTunes and Spotify. We drop new episodes every Monday. It's a lot of fun. We have some great friends, great co-hosts, and Kamran's going to have to come on later on this year because he loves Journey into Mystery, and that's like required reading if you're a Loki fan.
All right, awesome, dude. And we'll have in the show notes we'll have some links to everything too for social media, as well as if you have a link tree. Or anything.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I forgot about my link tree. Yes, I do.
So I'll throw that on there as well, so that way it's bridged to everything.
Thank you.
Otherwise, you can email us at Sutro Sidetalk at sutrosidetalk@gmail.com. Send us comments, feedback, or questions you want to ask us for future episodes if you want. I'll let you know at the future episodes in a second after all this other stuff. You can, of course, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Sutro Sidetalk, all one word. And you can help us out by subscribing on whatever platform you are listening to or watching. And if it's Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. If it's Spotify, please rate us. And if it is YouTube, give a like on the episode as well. Otherwise, still trying to figure out, I haven't had time really, but while I'm in Atlanta, I might actually have some time, ironically enough. while I'm traveling. I might have free time to kind of figure out why only 100 episodes will show up at a time. And each time we put a new one out, the old one gets disappeared from like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I got to figure that out. Otherwise, yeah, next week's episode will be a remaster of our very first episode. Like I said, we tried that out with our Star Wars special we did from episode 9 and Mandalorian season 1, and it worked pretty well in terms of just cleaning up the audio. So we'll do that again for episode 1 of Sutro Sidetalk. If it's on YouTube again, it'll be a still image because we didn't have video back then. And then for when I return, we'll have various topics. I'm not sure what order just yet, but we still really want to do our kind of PlayStation DLC double feature of Ghost of Tsushima's Iki Island and Horizon Forbidden West's Burning Shores DLCs, as well as now we still got to talk about like Fast X, Suzumi, and I know, I guess, when does Beast Wars come out?
Oh, I don't know. I like every time I watch a trailer for a movie, I just like blank out on
The date,
and I never remember it.
Oh yeah, well, the new Transformers movie is coming out. The one we're actually excited for because it's Beast Wars. It's like the '90s dream. But we have that going on, and I believe soon enough to we'll eventually have Demon Slayer and some other anime and other shows and whatnot. Plus Hogwarts Legacy when I finish that as well. So there'll be plenty to talk about. On James's Breath of the Wild 2 or Tears of the Kingdom. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, I'm chipping away at it.
Yeah.
I did 100% Iki Island though. At least I'm halfway there.
Okay. Excellent. But all right, I think that is everything, folks. Until next time. Catch you later.
Thanks for listening.